Chapter 626. It's simple. Apologize to me. Chu Kuangren said calmly. The swordsman tribe leader's expression turned grim. Are you kidding me? Because of you the swordsman Taoist is dead. The mystic sword guards in Jian Chongfeng have betrayed us and lost the right to fight for the throne. Even the Wind Cloud Sword Emperor is gone. Now you want us to apologize to you. The swordsman tribe leader almost roared out the rest of his words. Because of Chu Kuangren, the swordsman tribe had suffered great losses. Not only were the forbidden grounds gone, but so were the other peerless sky prides. Even the strongest swordsman emperor had died in Chu Kuangren's hands. Now, Chu Kuangren had come to the swordsman tribe and wanted them to apologize. As an ancient orthodoxy, no one had ever dared to provoke the swordsman tribe. Since when had they ever suffered such humiliation? Did I ask the swordsman tribe to provoke me? How dare you act so righteously when you're the one in the wrong? Heh, what a joke. Chu Kuangren's eyes turned cold. The descendant self-sword at his waist was unsheathed. The purple sword ray streaked across the sky and landed on the swordsman tribe's defensive formation. The large array formed by countless sword chis trembled violently under this powerful sword. And then it exploded with a loud bang. The swordsman tribe's formation was broken. The formation's destruction set off waves of sword chi that swept in all directions. The entire swordsman tribe's territory was instantly torn into pieces. An incredibly terrifying sword-based Taoist rhyme enveloped the swordsman tribe's territory. The swords in the hands of every swordsman trembled as they sent a message of fear and terror to their masters. Now let me teach you what it means to admit your mistakes and stand at attention when you're being beaten. Chu Kuangren snorted and appeared in front of the swordsman tribe leader in a flash. He then placed the descendant self-sword on his neck. During this entire process, the swordsman tribe leader could not react at all. His sword Dao was completely suppressed by Chu Kuangren. With Chu Kuangren's ultimate Dao and the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart, not a single swordsman in the entire emperor's path dared to use sword Dao in front of Chu Kuangren. Even the swordsman tribe, which was the best in sword Dao, was no exception. Gulp. The swordsman tribe leader could not help but gulp. The Kunwa sword was pressed against his neck, feeling extremely cold. The sharp sword chi directly drew a sword radiance and blood flowed out. How do you want us to apologize? The sword race's patriarch grit his teeth and said. Chu Kuangren was too domineering now that the swordsmen did not have the strength to fight him. Hence they had no choice but to give in. How do I apologize? That's simple. I'm in need of some resources recently. I want the foundation of your sword race's ancestral ground. Chu Kuangren said indifferently. Hearing this, the sword race leader's pupils constricted. Impossible. With a poochie sound, the sound of a sword cutting through flesh rang out in the ears of the sword race patriarch. A cold feeling came from his neck, as if something was continuously gushing out, dripping wet. It was his blood. Lord Patriarch, please speak cautiously. Chu Kuangren looked at the swordsman tribe leader and said in a serious tone. When the surrounding cultivators of the sword race caught sight of this, their faces turned green with anger. Their own clan leader was being threatened by someone with a sword on his neck. And yet, there was nothing they could do except watch from the sidelines. They didn't even dare to open their mouths. They were afraid. Thinking of this, he was furious but at the same time ashamed. The ancestral land of the Sword Clan is the resting place of our emperor. If we give the foundation to you, where will the emperor go? Hey, it's just changing a place to sleep. Chu Kuangren chuckled. The swordsman tribe leader almost vomited blood. Changing a place to sleep? How could it be that simple? The emperor's path restricted the emperor's path, so they could not easily make a move. Only in the ancestral land could they unleash their full power. The ancestral land was not only the resting place of the emperor's realm, but it was also the swordsman tribe's refuge in case of danger. Moreover, there were many important places in the ancestral land. For example, the sword catacomb, the sword lagoon, and other opportunities of fortune. If they gave the ancestral land's foundation to Chu Kuangren, it would be the same as destroying the entire ancestral land, destroying the opportunities of fortune that the swordsman tribe had inherited for countless years. Chu Kuangren was not only demolishing their homes, he was also shaking the swordsman tribe's foundation. I can give you the other resources of the swordsman tribe, but the foundation of the ancestral land is too important. I don't lack other resources, but I want the ancestral land's foundation, Chu Kuangren said, interrupting the swordsman tribe leader's words. Chu Kuangren, do you really have to go this far? Compared to you guys asking for my life, I'm already being very generous by only asking for your foundation. It's fine if you don't want to give it to me. It's not that difficult for me to destroy your entire swordsman tribe anyway. Chu Kuangren smiled, but his eyes were as cold as ice. If he really wanted to, it was not impossible for him to destroy the entire swordsman tribe. All right, I'll bring you to the ancestral land, the swordsman tribe leader said sullenly. Then, he brought Chu Kuangren to the swordsman tribe's ancestral land. In the depths of the mountain range, there was a huge mountain peak that looked like a sword that was inserted into the ground. Countless sword chi surrounded the mountain peak. Chu Kuangren could sense that there was a spatial fluctuation within this mountain peak. There was another world within this mountain peak. Let go of me. I'll open the secret realm. The swordsman tribe leader said helplessly. There's no need for that. Since I've already taken the foundation, this place will be gone. I'll just have to break it open with my sword. Chu Kuangren lifted his arm, and a majestic sword chi shot out. Along with a terrifying surge of energy, the entire mountain peak shook violently, and a huge pitch-black mouth was slashed open in the void. Chu Kuangren no longer cared about the swordsman tribe leader. He took a step forward and in a flash he dashed into the swordsman tribe's ancestral land. The remaining swordsman tribe leader collapsed to the ground. Without caring about the wound on his neck, he looked up to the sky and let out a long sigh. This is fate, this is fate. Inside the swordsman tribe's ancestral land, along with a loud noise, all the swordsman tribe emperors were jolted awake. They looked at the pitch-black mouth in the sky with a bewildered expression. Who's trespassing into the ancestral land? Who's so daring? A black-haired figure in a white robe stepped into the ancestral land. Chu Kuangren's gaze swept across the swordsman emperors, and then his spiritual thought surged and locked onto the location of the ancestral land's foundation. Soon he locked onto his target and dashed towards a spot in the depths of the ancestral land. He was about to retrieve the foundation. ****, who gave you permission to be so presumptuous here? One of the swordsman tribe emperors snorted. He turned into a ray of sword ray and charged towards Chu Kuangren. However, before he could get close, Chu Kuangren raised his arm and unleashed a sword chi. The razor-sharp sword chi tore through the void, and that emperor was instantly torn apart by the sword chi, exploding into a cloud of blood mist. ****, how dare you wreak havoc in the swordsman tribe's ancestral land? ****, who the hell are you? The swordsman tribe emperors were shocked. I'm Chu Kuangren, here to retrieve the swordsman tribe's ancestral land's foundation, Chu Kuangren said indifferently, and he immediately disappeared using the spatial conveyor technique. The remaining swordsman tribe emperors were shocked when they heard the name Chu Kuangren. They were no strangers to that name. They had already heard about the swordsman tribe leader killing the sword sovereign of Windcloud. However, they did not expect that Chu Kuangren would not only kill the sword sovereign of Windcloud, but also destroy their ancestral land's foundation. Chapter 627. In a flash, Chu Kuangren arrived at a pond deep within the swordsman ancestral ground. There were countless swords buried there. It was the sword pool. It was one of the opportunities of fortune within the swordsman ancestral ground. Chu Kuangren could keenly sense that there was an extremely dense and pure sword chi at the bottom of the sword pool. Rise! Chu Kuangren raised his hand and activated the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart's power. The water in the sword pool began to boil, and countless swords rose from the water and hovered in the air. Among them was a giant white sphere that was surrounded by countless swords like guards. Oh, the ancestral ground's foundation is protected by a sword formation. Chu Kuangren's gaze was indifferent as he increased the power of the exquisite 9 orifices sword heart. The countless swords trembled and retreated to the sides. The sword formation was destroyed on its own. Chu Kuangren then grabbed the white light orb from afar, and turned it into a crystal-like longsword. It was not a physical sword chi, but a sword chi sword that was condensed from countless pure sword chi. Taking the essence of 10,000 swords and refining it into a sword chi to maintain the ancestral ground's operation. This sword pool is quite mysterious, Chu Kuangren said. After that, he took away the essence of 10,000 swords. The entire swordsman ancestral ground trembled, and the space around it became unstable. Chu Kuangren did not care and continued to move forward. There were 3 foundations in the swordsman ancestral ground. The first foundation was the essence of 10,000 swords in the sword pool. The second foundation was an emperor weapon longsword. Chu Kuangren was a little disappointed. After all, he did not lack emperor weapons. What he needed was resources that could be absorbed to increase his cultivation. However, this emperor weapon was extremely powerful. Its emperor's aura was much stronger than any of the other emperor weapons in his possession. Obviously, emperor weapons were divided into different grades. As for this imperial armament, it was clearly a high-grade item among imperial armaments. That comforted Chu Kuangren a little. I hope the last foundation won't disappoint me, Chu Kuangren murmured. Soon, he arrived at the last foundation of the swordsman ancestral ground. It was a building that looked like a mausoleum. This was the swordsman tribe's sword tomb. Besides them, the emperors of the ancestral ground had also gathered here. It was impossible for them to watch Chu Kuangren destroy the swordsman tribe's ancestral land without doing anything. Hence, they had gathered together to deal with him. Chu Kuangren was not surprised at all. Chu Kuangren, if you wish to destroy the swordsman ancestral ground today, you'll have to step over our dead bodies. An emperor from the sword race coldly snorted. After that, the other emperors behind him stood behind him, forming a sword formation. 8 Desolation 6 Directions God-slaying sword formation. The emperor of the sword race roared out and activated the power of the sword formation. The sword-based Taoist rhymes that erupted from these sword emperors resonated with each other, and their sword chis gradually fused together. Die! The leading sword emperor raised his hand and slashed out. In an instant, the power of a dozen sword emperors overlapped and formed into a gigantic sword shadow that slashed towards Chu Kuangren. The terrifying sword pressure caused the surrounding void to explode in an instant. Your courage is commendable, but it's all in vain, Chu Kuangren said indifferently. As he raised his hand, the power of 4 elephants gushed out. Primordial sword of 4 elephants. The primordial sword of 4 elephants that was fused with the might of 9 surges of Emperor's essence erupted. The 2 gigantic sword shadows collided together, but the primordial sword of 4 elephants shattered the sword formation's sword shadows like a hot knife through butter. The rest of the sword shadow's energy continued to collide with the dozen or so emperors. The leading sword emperor instantly exploded into a mist of blood. The other emperors were also sent flying like kites with their strings cut. One by one, they fell to the ground and looked at Chu Kuangren in shock. How can his strength be so terrifying? 9 surges of Emperor's essence. He managed to cultivate 9 surges of Emperor's essence. Is this the strength that killed the Wind Cloud Sword Emperor? The group of sword emperors fell into despair. The strength that Chu Kuangren had displayed was too much for them to handle. Such strength was completely above them. Buzz, buzz, buzz. At that moment, the sword catacomb suddenly began to shake violently. A golden ray of light suddenly shot into the sky and landed in front of the group of sword rays. It was a golden skeleton. Golden light flowed around the skeleton's body, and a dense sword chi surrounded it. An extremely intense emperor's aura emanated from it. Oh, this is a sword emperor's corpse. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. I can't believe that the last foundation of the swordsman's ancestral ground is a sword emperor's corpse. He could sense that the aura of this corpse was closely connected to the swordsman's ancestral ground, as if they were one. Not only that, but he also sensed a slight threat from this sword emperor's corpse, which surprised him a little. He did not feel this way even when he was surrounded by the most powerful emperors in the emperor's path, but now he felt it from a corpse. Forefather. It's the forefather. The sword emperors were hopeful when they saw the sword emperor's corpse. The sword chi on the sword emperor's corpse flowed, and an emperor's will appeared. Then the sword chi intertwined and gradually formed flesh and blood. The corpse then turned into a handsome middle-aged man. This man was dressed in a golden robe, and he stood with his hands behind his back. An emperor's aura emanated from his body, making him look like a great emperor. Oh, a remnant consciousness of a dead emperor? Interesting. Chu Kuangren activated his Eye of Revelation, and soon he knew the identity of this emperor in his current state. Sky Pride, you're very strong, but I can't sit back and watch you destroy the swordsman's ancestral ground. So make your move, the swordsman's emperor said. He raised his hand and grasped the air, and a sword that was dropped by a sword emperor appeared in his hand. With the sword in hand, the sword emperor's aura poured out. Ha, a mere remnant consciousness has such power. I'm looking forward to the emperor's realm now. Chu Kuangren laughed. He did not hesitate either. A huge, colorful rune immediately formed. The 9 Dragons' Divine Transformation Talisman was formed again. 9 surges of dragon chi entered Chu Kuangren's body, causing his aura to skyrocket. With the Descendant Self-Sword in his hand, his aura was so strong that it was no weaker than the Sword Emperor's remnant consciousness. Sky Pride, you're indeed powerful. If you were born in my era, you might have been able to prove your Tao through strength. The swordsman's emperor had a look of admiration in his eyes. Even in this era, it's not impossible for me to do so, Chu Kuangren said proudly. He loved to challenge all kinds of impossible things, and he was good at breaking the world's common sense and creating miracles. Hearing the ambition in Chu Kuangren's words, the swordsman's emperor was even more impressed. However, a murderous intent gradually shot out from his eyes. It's a pity that you're going to die here today. You're just a remnant consciousness. Watch how I kill you. Chu Kuangren raised his sword and slashed. The power of the 9 emperors of the 9 dragons erupted and merged into the sword chi. The swordsman's emperor did not hesitate either. He raised his sword and slashed, and the emperor's aura erupted, faintly suppressing Chu Kuangren's Tao. The moment the 2 surges of sword chi collided, the entire swordsman's ancestral ground shook violently as if it would collapse at any moment. The swordsman's emperors immediately retreated, afraid that they would be affected. Chapter 628. Inside the swordsman tribe's ancestral grounds, Chu Kuangren had once again encountered a strong opponent. A swordsman emperor's remnant consciousness. Both of them engaged in a fierce battle. Their respective sword daos reflected each other, and the sound of their swords clashing reverberated endlessly. Moreover, every single collision was the ultimate confrontation of the sword Tao. Is this the Emperor's Tao? As expected, it's difficult to compete against an Emperor's Tao. However, how much Emperor's Tao power can your remnant consciousness embody unleash? Chu Kuangren waved his descendant self-sword and said indifferently, "It's enough to kill you." The swordsman emperor said coldly. A terrifying emperor's aura erupted from his body, making Chu Kuangren's sword Tao feel suppressed. It was Chu Kuangren's first time being suppressed to such an extent. However, not only did he not panic, but he was also excited to see his opponent. He waved his descendant self-sword and unleashed his Tao to its fullest. During this process, his Tao that had just broken through to its peak showed signs of advancing further. He was using this emperor's Tao to hone his own Tao. You're too arrogant to use my Tao to hone your skills. The swordsman emperor snorted and channeled his power to its peak. With a slash, Chu Kuangren was blasted away. Ha, I've seen the tip of the iceberg of the emperor's Tao. It's time for this battle to end. Chu Kuangren chuckled. The swordsman emperor frowned at his words. What do you mean? It's time to end this? Don't tell me you want to escape? No, I'm trying to kill you. Chu Kuangren chuckled and took a step forward. He channeled his majestic Taoist rhyme to its peak and unleashed his invincible technique. Suddenly, lines of Taoist patterns intertwined in the void, surging with a terrifying domineering aura. This is the profound mystery. The swordsman emperor's pupils shrunk in shock. The profound mystery was a cultivation technique that allowed one's Tao to be unleashed to its peak. It was a cultivation technique that belonged to every cultivator. Even he, the swordsman emperor, could not understand the profound mystery. Now he was witnessing it from a junior Sky Pride. A junior Sky Pride, like you can understand the profound mystery? How is this possible? Before I died, I spent countless years trying to understand the profound mystery. How can a junior Sky Pride like you do it? The emperor of the sword race lost his balance. If Chu Kuangren was an emperor now, he would not have reacted this way. However, Chu Kuangren was not. Chu Kuangren was just a junior Sky Pride. Moreover, Chu Kuangren could tell that Chu Kuangren was considered very young even among sky prides. He was definitely not more than 60 years old. But it was precisely this heaven's chosen that had comprehended the profound mysteries that he had spent tens of thousands of years studying. How could he accept this? He felt that his tens of thousands of years were like a joke. You can't even hold on to your Tao heart, and you call yourself an emperor? Chu Kuangren could tell that his opponent was about to explode, so he could not help but chuckle. He then took the opportunity to activate his technique of invincibility. With a slash of the sword, the power to overturn heaven and earth erupted. This force would not change according to Chu Kuangren's technique. Be it a sword slash or a fist strike, it would be the same. Bang! Under the bombardment of the heaven and earth reversal power, the sword race emperor was blasted away on the spot. The remnant consciousness also gradually disintegrated and turned back into a skeleton. Young one, you've destroyed the ancestral grounds of the Sword Clan, so the emperors of the Sword Clan won't let you off easily. The emperor of the Sword Clan said coldly, "Once I become an emperor, tell them to come and find me." Chu Kuangren's figure flashed and grabbed the golden skeleton's head. The power of the 9 emperors of the 9 dragons erupted, instantly disintegrating the Sword Emperor's remnant consciousness. Then he tossed the skeleton into his yin and yang ring. Just when he had taken away the 3 major foundations of the Sword Clan's ancestral grounds, the entire ancestral grounds began to shake. Black cracks spread across the void and gradually covered the entire ancestral grounds. The enchanted boundary of the ancestral grounds began to crumble. It's over. It's over. The swordsman emperors were instantly disheartened when they saw that. However, Chu Kuangren did not care at all. His figure flashed and turned into a stream of light, instantly disappearing from the swordsman emperor's sight. Meanwhile, in the outside world, the sword-shaped mountain that contained the swordsman's ancestral grounds began to crumble. Waves of horrifying spatial fluctuations spread out, destroying everything around it. The mountains and rivers were all turned into nothingness. The swordsman clan leader seemed to have expected this to happen. He had already led the swordsman to another place to take refuge. When the mountain began to collapse, a ray of sword light rushed out from within and then disappeared into the void. The swordsman clan leader knew that it was Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren had already taken away the foundations of the swordsman's ancestral grounds. It's all fate. The swordsman clan leader muttered helplessly. As the swordsman's ancestral grounds crumbled, the news of Chu Kuangren destroying another ancestral ground quickly spread throughout the Emperor's Road. In an instant, Chu Kuangren was once again the talk of the town. After the Holy Light's ancestral grounds, the swordsman's ancestral grounds won't be spared either. Is this Chu Kuangren going to destroy all the Emperor's resting grounds before he stops? Isn't this too lawless? This Chu Kuangren really won't stop until he causes a ruckus. He's going to turn the Emperor's Road upside down. Now that he's in the Emperor's Road, who else can stop him? We can't let him go on like this. Otherwise, the Emperor's Road will become Chu Kuangren's world. I don't think there's anything wrong with this. He's obviously taking revenge. The swordsmen have been looking for trouble with Chu Kuangren time and time again, so why can't he take revenge? Yeah, I think so too. I can only say that the swordsmen brought this upon themselves. Throughout the Emperor's Road, there were people who criticized Chu Kuangren. Some said that he was ruthless, some said that he was someone who took revenge on others, and some just wanted to watch the drama unfold, guessing which force would be Chu Kuangren's next target. Among them, the ones who were the most afraid were the Wang family by family, demonic tribe, and the runic lands. These orthodoxies that had once attacked Chu Kuangren were all on high alert. Not long after, another piece of news spread. That was, Chu Kuangren had appeared in the Yin-Yang sect's territory, destroyed the Divine sect's defensive formation, and seized the ancestral grounds foundations. When this news spread, many people's guesses were confirmed. Chu Kuangren was exacting his revenge. After the Yin-Yang sect, Chu Kuangren arrived at the Wang family. The moment he stepped into the Wang family's territory, a majestic 5-colored light suddenly appeared in the sky above the Wang family's residence. The mistress of the Wang family flew over on her colorful peacock and tossed a white jade token in her hand. The white jade token glowed brightly, and a majestic figure formed in the void. This person emanated a terrifying emperor's poise. It was the emperor's clone of the Wang family's emperor, who had appeared to stop Chu Kuangren. This was also the Wang family's strongest technique. Sky Pride, leave the Wang family now, and I'll pretend nothing happened between you and the Wang family. The Wang family's emperor said arrogantly. You're just bullshit-ing me. When Chu Kuangren heard that, he snorted coldly and threw a punch at his opponent from afar. His invincible technique erupted and streaks of Taoist patterns circled in the void, illuminating the scene of the sun and the moon flipping and the stars falling. The destructive power instantly blew the Wang family's emperor apart. Chapter 629. Chu Kuangren destroyed the Wang family's emperor's projection with a single punch. That terrifying power shocked every cultivator in the Wang family. The matriarch of the Wang family was sent flying by the terrifying impact, and her peacock mount flapped its wings and fled in panic. Are you going to hand over the Wang family's ancestral grounds, or do you want me to take it from you? Chu Kuangren stared coldly at the Wang family's mistress and said, Chu Kuangren, you've gone too far. I've heard you say that many times. My patience is limited. If you don't hand it over, the Wang family will not have a day of peace. You! The Wang family's mistress was so angry that her face turned green and her chest heaved. In the end, she could only give in. Even their strongest technique, the Wang family's emperor's will, was destroyed by Chu Kuangren with a single punch. What else could they do? Soon, the Wang family's ancestral grounds were destroyed, and the ancestral grounds' foundations were taken away. Meanwhile, news of Chu Kuangren shattering the Wang emperor's will with a single punch had spread like wildfire. Everyone was shocked by the news, and they were all trying to guess just how powerful Chu Kuangren was. Then the Bai family, the demonic ox clan, the nine-headed snakelet tribe Chu Kuangren went to all the ancient orthodoxies and took away their ancestral grounds' foundations. Throughout the process, some people wanted to resist, but no one could. Chu Kuangren was unstoppable. About half a month later, Chu Kuangren had already taken away the ancestral grounds foundations of the ancient orthodoxies that had gone to the Seven Emotions sect to find trouble with him. These ancestral land foundations were a terrifying resource. If any of them were to be released, it would cause a bloodbath. Now, this pile of treasures was placed in front of Chu Kuangren. Million Sword Essence, Emperor's Corpse, Heavenly Yellow Dragon Chi, Earth Vein Essence, Darkness Crystal, Yin Yang Motherstone. Looks like this is enough for me to absorb and refine for a while. Chu Kuangren smiled in satisfaction as he looked at the pile of treasures. Soon he found a place and set up layers of restrictions to ensure that even an emperor could not break through. Then he went into closed-door meditation. While Chu Kuangren was in closed-door meditation, the outside world was not peaceful. In the core area of the ancient barren forbidden area, a black soil that contained an ominous aura suddenly began to tremble. An incomparably strange power gradually spread out, and within the entire stretch of black soil, there were actually many arms reaching out. Many ancient existences crawled out of the ground and burst forth with horrifying auras, shaking half of the Emperor's road. We have been revived. A middle-aged man in broken armor let out a long roar, and an extremely violent aura pierced through the clouds, shattering the clouds. It wasn't just him. Within the black soil, experts from the ancient era or the primordial era awakened one after another. Their might was impressive, shaking the Emperor's road. All the orthodoxies on the Emperor's road sensed it. For a time, all the great figures cast their gazes towards the core area of the desolate forbidden area, and their eyes were filled with bewilderment and uncertainty. The disturbance in the forbidden land, and this strange and ominous atmosphere, what is going on? Did something appear in the forbidden land? The core of the desolate forbidden land has been a place of absolute death for countless years. Only those who enter can come out. What happened today? Wait, what is that? Just as countless almighties were in shock, they suddenly saw a black light shoot up into the sky from the core area of the desolate forbidden area, and the strange and ominous atmosphere became even more solemn. The countless seals that wrapped around the core area of the desolate forbidden area shattered one after another. The black light dissipated, and what was reflected in the eyes of all the almighties was a giant bronze coffin that was carved with countless strange patterns. The giant coffin hovered in the air, and when the spiritual thoughts of all the almighties came into contact with it, they all screamed in pain. Their spiritual thoughts were instantly shattered by a strong and ominous aura. This is the emperor-burying coffin of the ancient legends. One of the Almighties was knowledgeable, and he immediately recognized the giant coffin that was unearthed from the depths of the desolate forbidden area, and he was extremely shocked. The emperor-burying coffin. No one knew the origin of this item, and there were only a few ancient records of this item. Even for the emperors who had lived for countless years, the emperor-burying coffin was something of the legends, and it was the first time they had seen it. Just as everyone was shocked by the appearance of the emperor-burying coffin, they saw the emperor-burying coffin move again. The emperor-burying coffin trembled slightly, and a dark green light flashed across the surface of the coffin that was carved with countless strange patterns. Then a very black chain extended out from the coffin and swept in all directions. When the ancient experts who had just climbed out of the black soil of the forbidden area saw the black chain, their expressions changed drastically. They felt their scalps go numb, and they all wanted to escape. However, the surroundings were enveloped by an invisible force field that the emperor-burying coffin emitted. Even the ancient experts could not escape. All of them were wrapped around their necks by the rings on the black chain, and they let out miserable screams. Hundreds of ancient experts screamed at the same time, and the strange and inexplicable scene caused the emperors in the Emperor's Road to feel horrified. After a while, the ancient experts' screams gradually stopped, and they crawled up from where they were, but their eyes were empty. Then the ancient experts pulled the chains behind them, and they dragged the emperor-burying coffin out of the forbidden area. Oh no! One of the sovereigns seemed to have thought of something, and his expression became one of fear. Over 100 ancient experts dragged the emperor-burying coffin to a city. Then all of them attacked at the same time. Incomparably violent energy exploded like a storm, sweeping across the entire place. Tens of millions of living beings in the city perished. After these living beings died, they turned into streams of blood-colored energy that surged into the burial emperor coffin and were absorbed by it. The emperor-burying coffin, which was originally dark blue in color, suddenly had a trace of blood color. The strange aura on it became even thicker. The burial emperor's coffin is the source of calamity. Once it appears, calamity will descend. The Emperor's Road is going to suffer a calamity. If you drag a coffin across the border, only death awaits. One of the emperors said in a terrified tone. These ancient experts had all explored the core of the forbidden grounds, but because of the influence of the burying emperor coffin, they all fell into a deep slumber in the black soil. But now, these ancient experts were awakened by the burying emperor coffin. They turned into coffin carriers, slaughtering for the coffin and gathering energy. The appearance of the ancient expert and the burying emperor coffin caused the Emperor's Road to tremble like never before. Countless people were terrified. Not only the Emperor's Road. Above the 9 heavens, the monarchs also sensed the appearance of the burying emperor coffin. All of them could not sit still anymore. Damn it, of all times to wake up, why did it have to choose now? This is going to be troublesome. Dragging a coffin across the border, only death awaits. The Emperor's Road is going to be finished. No, if the Emperor's Road is finished, no new monarch will appear in this era, and the heavenly law will still be incomplete. I've waited for so many years to get a chance to complete the heavenly law. How can I just watch it slip away like this? I don't have the patience to wait for another era. Then what should we do? The heavenly law is incomplete. As monarchs, we have no way to enter the Emperor's Road to stop this calamity. Let's wait and see. Chapter 630. Inside the Emperor's Road, a catastrophe was unfolding. The ancient experts who had once explored the core of the barren forbidden ground were awakened and turned into coffin carriers. They dragged the coffin and headed straight for Emperor Mountain. Everywhere they went, living beings were destroyed. In just 3 days, hundreds of millions of living beings had died. After the endless massacre, 1/5 of the coffin's surface had turned blood red. Everyone knew that the calamity would only end when the emperor burial coffin turned completely red. At that moment, some of the ancient orthodoxies who had planned to stop the coffin fell silent and did not move forward. What should we do now? Ignore them. Let the coffin continue to absorb energy. Once the coffin absorbs enough energy, it will naturally return to the forbidden ground. We only need to preserve our strength and fight for the throne in the future. But what about the others? Living beings are dying. Are we really going to sit back and do nothing? It's not like we killed them. It doesn't matter. After looking through countless ancient books, the emperors all knew that the emperor-burying coffin had appeared mainly to collect the energy of living beings. Once they had collected enough energy, they would return to the depths of the forbidden ground. At that thought, most of the rulers made a decision almost instantly. Instead of stopping the coffin or going head-on against it, it was better to preserve their strength and avoid going head-on against the coffin. As for how many living beings would die because of their inaction, that was not within the scope of their consideration. After living for so many years, the rulers were already indifferent to life and death. Or rather, they were indifferent to the life and death of others apart from themselves. To them, as long as they did not endanger themselves or harm the interests of their clans, it did not matter to them how many others died. The inaction of the ancient orthodoxies was witnessed by countless people and cultivators. They all felt sorrowful. In the eyes of those at the top, they were no different from ants. At that moment, riots broke out all over the Emperor's Road. One should know that the ancient orthodoxies were able to develop to this day because of the help of some small and medium-sized orthodoxies and the people. Putting everything else aside, the number of spiritual sources that the ancient orthodoxies' subsidiary forces handed over every year was not a small number. Yet now, at the critical moment, they'd been abandoned and could be abandoned at will. How could they not be furious? The condemnation of the various ancient sects came wave after wave like tidewater, and it caused the reputation of the various sects to be in a terrible state. But even then, the various sects still turned a blind eye to it, and it was even to the extent that they dispatched forces to suppress some of the riots. What orthodoxy? It's all bullshit. Now that the calamity has arrived, all of them are acting like cowards. What a joke, what a joke. You used to strut around in front of us, but now you don't even dare to fart. God, didn't you say we were your people? Why are you turning a blind eye to the plight of your people? God, is this your so-called mercy, your so-called love for people as your own children? On the Emperor's Road, the cultivators and commoners of the various places complained, but there was nothing he could do. In front of the power of the ancient orthodoxies, they were too weak. In the face of the calamity, they were even more powerless. As the calamity continued, the ancient orthodoxies made a new move, but it wasn't to save the living beings. They were sending their heaven's prides deep into the barren forbidden ground. They were going deep into the forbidden ground to search for fortunes. The restrictive spells deep inside the forbidden ground had disappeared, and the ancient powerhouses had awakened and turned into coffin carriers. There must be many fortunes hidden deep inside the forbidden ground, and these heaven's prides were heading for them. As countless living beings were in danger, the ancient orthodoxies weren't thinking about saving the commoners or the forces that were affiliated with them. Instead, they were choosing to search for fortunes while the emperor-burying coffin was not around. This infuriated countless people. Screw your bullsh T Sword Tribe. I and the others have contributed so much to the Sword Tribe, yet you're turning a blind eye to it. Instead of sending people to save people, you're going to search for fortunes? Screw you. O God of Light, have you really abandoned us? F***CK. Inside a city, countless living beings were fleeing for their lives. The cultivators in the city received the news that the coffin dragging team was approaching. It wouldn't be long before they arrived. However, the emperor-burying coffin was faster than they had expected. Soon, everyone sensed that there was an extremely strange aura approaching them from afar. Over 100 ancient powerhouses had chains around their necks and were dragging the emperor-burying coffin toward the city like dogs. Soon they arrived above the city. Without saying too much, over 100 ancient experts took action together, attacking the city. Cries of agony lingered in the air. The huge city instantly turned into a living hell. Countless living beings turned into blood-colored energy and were absorbed by the emperor-burying coffin. Over 100 ancient powerhouses, even the weakest one was a martial dominator who had cultivated a few wisps of emperor chi. When they attacked at the same time, no one could stop them inside the martial monarch's path. In just a few breaths' time, the city had turned into a land of death. After absorbing another city's energy, the emperor-burying coffin's surface turned blood-colored again. It had now covered a third of the coffin. Not far away, there were emperors who witnessed this scene. That's terrifying. A martial dominator blurted out in fear. Yeah, the emperor-bearing coffin is indeed an ominous object from the ancient era or even the immemorial era. It can drive so many ancient powerhouses to sacrifice living beings for it. A martial dominator looked at the emperor-burying coffin in the distance with curiosity in his eyes. I wonder who is buried in the coffin. What's the purpose of it absorbing so many living beings' energy? Is it going to come back to life? No one knew why the emperor-burying coffin was sacrificing countless living beings. No one knew who was buried in it either. But since it was called the emperor-burying coffin, it was at least a martial monarch. This is related to the ancient era or even the immemorial era. Only martial monarchs might know about it. It's not something we can know. The martial dominators shook their heads. There were some secrets that they were not qualified to know. Wait, did you guys notice that the emperor-bearing coffin seems to be going in the wrong direction? It seems to be going to the Emperor Mountain. A martial dominator suddenly said with a frown. Hearing this, everyone's expression changed slightly. The Emperor Mountain was where the emperor-burying coffin was. Where is the emperor-burying coffin going? What's its purpose? I hope it won't affect the martial monarch realm. It doesn't matter if it affects it or not. Isn't the martial monarch realm candidate already decided? A martial dominator from the sword race sneered. Everyone knew who he was talking about. They didn't know how to refute him. With that person around, none of their geniuses had any hope of becoming martial monarchs. Speaking of which, the emperor-burying coffin has caused such a huge commotion. Why hasn't that person appeared? What is he doing? Maybe he's found a place to hide. Although he's strong, I'm afraid he can't do anything against the emperor-burying coffin. Everyone went silent and continued to watch the emperor-burying coffin. Chapter 631. The Emperor's Mountain. At the end of the Emperor's Road, where the Emperor's throne was located, the majestic Emperor's Mountain was shrouded in golden mist. As long as the Emperor's throne was not revealed, the golden mist would not dissipate, and no one else could enter the Emperor's Mountain. Today, the golden mist seemed to have sensed something and began to rumble. Thousands of kilometers away from the Emperor's Mountain, hundreds of ancient cultivators were dragging a giant coffin that was half stained with blood. That was the burying Emperor's coffin. When the burying Emperor's coffin arrived at the Emperor's Mountain, it caused the golden mist around the Emperor's Mountain to rumble, and a strange fluctuation spread out. King warriors on the Emperor's Way also noticed this. They all looked at Dishan, curious about the development of the situation. There are no living beings within 10,000 kilometers of the Emperor's Mountain. If the burying Emperor's coffin wants to absorb the energy of living beings, why would it come here? Is this burying Emperor's coffin trying to enter the Emperor's Mountain? Does the burying Emperor's coffin have its own consciousness? This ominous object is truly strange and unfathomable. I wonder who is buried within it. While the emperors were discussing, the hundreds of ancient cultivators who were bound by the burying Emperor's coffin seemed to have received some kind of order. They shouted in unison and channeled their spiritual power and Emperor's chi towards the Emperor's Mountain. Hundreds of terrifying energies collided with the golden mist and exploded. The impact was so great that the entire Mount Emperor shook a bit. Vaguely, the crowd could see the Emperor's Mountain through the dispersed mist. The majestic Emperor's Mountain stood tall on the ground, and its entire body was surrounded by countless Taoist patterns. At the peak of the mountain, there were a few platforms that looked like they were made out of gold and jade. On top of those platforms there was a mysterious flow of energy. All the Emperor's pupils constricted at the sight of this. That's the Emperor's throne. There's more than one Emperor's throne. Oh my God, they say that this era of great battles is an unprecedented change. And there's a chance for the world to turn from decline to prosperity. Seems like it's true. There's more than one Emperor's throne in this era alone. It seems like our Sky Pride still have a chance to become emperors. No matter how strong Chu Kuangren is, can he claim all the Emperor's throne? Haha, this is great news. This is a surprise. After seeing Dishan, the emperors were overjoyed. Then, they looked at the Emperor burying coffin with worry in their eyes. The coffin of the burying Emperor ordered the ancient experts to attack Mount D. What did that mean? Does it want to destroy Dishan? Fortunately, the Emperor Mountain had never been damaged since ancient times. Although the hundreds of ancient experts driven by the coffin were terrifying, It was still impossible for them to destroy the Emperor Mountain. After the sovereign's attacks dispersed the golden mist, they landed on the surface of the mountain and were immediately disintegrated by the circulating Tao patterns. After the first round of attacks failed, these sovereigns channeled their spiritual energy and monarch chi like machines, raising their hands to launch a second round of attacks. But at this moment, a crack appeared in the void and a slender figure dressed in white robes walked out. Judging from the figure, it should be a woman, but what was incomparably surprising was that this woman had no head. Not only that, but this woman also exuded an extremely terrifying emperor's aura, causing the expressions of the martial emperors present to change. What is this? Can still move without a head. Who is this woman? What a strong emperor's aura. This woman must be an emperor-level figure, but why would she suddenly appear here? The appearance of the headless empress surprised the martial emperors. At this moment, the headless empress suddenly attacked. She slapped with her palm and an extremely thick emperor's aura was released. Although the headless empress could not unleash her full strength due to the restrictions of the emperor's path, and the fact that she did not have a head, her combat strength was still terrifying. With a slap, an emperor was sent flying. However, the headless empress's target was not these martial emperors. After opening a path, she flew towards the coffin of the burying emperor. She slapped with her palm and thick Taoist rhymes condensed. Seemingly solid Tao patterns surged out and, with the support of Emperor's aura, blasted towards the coffin of the burying emperor. With a loud bang, the coffin of the burying emperor trembled from the slap and was sent flying hundreds of feet away. Even the lid of the coffin could not hold it any longer. A crack opened, revealing an extremely thick sea of gray clouds inside. Streaks of gray gas emerged from the sea of clouds and landed on the ground. The ground could not withstand the weight of the seemingly light wisp of fog. It exploded and caved in, forming a huge pit. That's chaotic energy. The martial emperors took a deep breath and their eyes were burning with passion. Chaotic energy was a treasure that only existed before the world was created. It could evolve into any type of energy. Not only that, the chaotic energy could be used to forge weapons, strengthen one's body, or even cultivate. It had endless uses. Just a wisp of chaotic energy was enough to make countless cultivators go crazy for it. Even martial emperors would be tempted. But what did they just see? The chaotic energy in the coffin of the burying emperor had turned into an endless sea of chaotic clouds. How much chaotic energy was that? Great opportunity. This is definitely a great opportunity. If we can get our hands on this chaotic energy, even if it's just a ball, it would be enough to benefit us greatly. We are confident that we can become emperors in the next era. That's right. There's such a treasure hidden in the coffin of the burying emperor. My God, this is unimaginable. As the crowd was still in shock, the coffin of the burying emperor closed. The sea of chaotic clouds disappeared in front of the crowd. Seeing this, the headless empress attacked again in an attempt to break the coffin of the burying emperor. However, the material of the coffin of the burying emperor was special, and there were Tao runes on it. Even though the headless empress was powerful, she could not open it again. Not only that, the surrounding ancient experts attacked the headless empress fiercely under the command of the coffin of the burying emperor. Among them, there were a few who were not weaker than the headless empress. Under the continuous attacks of the ancient experts, the headless empress had no choice but to retreat. In the end, she tore open a crack in the space and left. The martial emperors looked at each other in confusion. The headless empress suddenly appeared and left after fighting for no reason. What's the meaning of this? I don't know either. Maybe the headless empress is after the chaotic energy in the coffin of the burying emperor. What should we do now? One of the martial emperors asked. The crowd rolled their eyes when they saw him. What else can we do? Let's wait and see. Once the coffin of the burying emperor has collected enough energy, we can go back by ourselves. Are you going to fight it head-on like the headless empress? One of the martial emperors curled his lips and said, Indeed, the chaotic energy in the coffin of the burying emperor was a great opportunity. However, the problem was that they had to find a way to get it. Did they really think that the hundreds of ancient experts controlled by the coffin of the burying emperor were just decorations? Even the headless empress could not do anything about it, let alone the rest of them. Then, The coffin of the burying emperor commanded the ancient experts to continue attacking the mountain. However, the mountain was difficult to destroy. The hundreds of ancient experts attacked for a day and a night, but not even a single stone was destroyed. Feeling helpless, the ancient experts could only drag the coffin of the burying emperor and leave. They headed to other places to continue collecting energy for the coffin of the burying emperor. After the coffin of the burying emperor left, more than 10 martial emperors rushed forward to fight for the few streams of chaotic energy that came out from the coffin. Damn it, it's mine. Don't fight for it. Humph, it belongs to whoever gets it first. Just as more than 10 martial emperors were fighting for a few streams of chaotic energy, the scene of people dragging the coffin of the burying emperor continued. Chapter 632. Just when the outside world was in chaos, Chu Kuangren was currently refining the ancestors' grounds foundation stones that he had obtained from the various ancestors' lands. These resources were of great help to him. In fact, they were even helping him break through the limits of an emperor. There were 9 surges of emperor's qi that could be cultivated below the emperor realm. The daos below the emperor realm were considered the ultimate daos. However, Chu Kuangren was breaking through this ancient limit with the help of a large number of ancestors' grounds foundation stones. On the 3rd day of his closed-door meditation, Chu Kuangren successfully condensed the 10th surge of emperor's qi after refining 3 ancestors' grounds foundation stones. Following that, the 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th surges of emperor's qi were added one after another. After half a month of closed-door meditation, Chu Kuangren had refined all the ancestors' grounds foundation stones that he could refine. At this moment, the emperor's qi in his body had reached an astonishing 24 surges, completely breaking through the limit of 9 surges of emperor's qi. Not only that, but under the nourishment of the emperor's qi, his physical body and soul energy had also greatly improved. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly a violent tremor erupted in a mountain range. Then a figure broke out of the mountain and shot into the sky. An endless domineering aura spread out from that person, shocking all the cultivators within a radius of hundreds of thousands of kilometers. Everyone looked over and saw a white-robed, black-haired figure standing in the air with a gorgeous long sword hanging from his waist. He looked like a celestial being. It's him, Chu Kuangren. Has he been in closed-door meditation all this while? What a terrifying aura. What realm is he at now? This is too scary. Others who have cultivated for thousands of years can't improve as much as him after a few days of closed-door meditation. Is he still human? This aura, don't tell me he's an emperor. Countless cultivators looked at Chu Kuangren, who was standing in the air, and gulped. The domineering aura that Chu Kuangren exuded was beyond their understanding. Even the forbidden emperors could not compare to him. At this time, Chu Kuangren was standing in the air, and his spiritual thought, which had greatly increased, spread out like a tidal wave. Soon, half of the emperor's path was covered by his spiritual thought. He had the telekinesis talent. All of these spiritual thoughts possessed his 5 senses, so he could hear what others were saying and even touch them. Therefore, he was aware of everything that had happened during this period of time, including the appearance of the emperor burying coffin. The emperor burying coffin? This thing is interesting. Chu Kuangren muttered. His spiritual sense surged as he searched for the existence of this item. Very quickly, he sensed the exact location of the burying emperor's coffin. However, the location of the coffin caused his eyes to turn cold instantly. Holy sh*T. You've crossed the line. The ancient cultivator dragged the burying emperor coffin to a mountain range. Everywhere he went, countless living beings turned into blood-colored energy and were absorbed. In the depths of the mountain range were countless restrictions. That was where Nangong Huang and the others were cultivating in seclusion. However, the coffin haulers did not care about that. They only knew how to mechanically repeat their killing actions, destroying all living beings they encountered to provide energy for the burying emperor coffin behind them. Boom! An emperor punched out. The violent power instantly killed all the beasts in the mountain range. Then, countless crimson energy surged towards the burial emperor coffin. Tens of thousands of miles away from the burying emperor coffin, a group of emperors gathered. They looked at the burial emperor coffin that was already half-stained with blood with respect and fear in their eyes. This emperor burying coffin is almost done collecting the energy of the living beings. Look at the blood color. It's about to dye the entire coffin red. One of the emperors said. Hearing this, the rest of the people nodded. Yes, it's almost done. I think we just need to kill another billion. By then we won't have to hide anymore. After this incident with the burial emperor coffin, the forces that are affiliated with us are very resentful. We'll need to appease them for a while. Their deaths are valuable. They provided the energy for the burial emperor coffin and protected us. Even if these mortals cultivate for a few more lifetimes, they would never be able to accumulate such merit. That makes sense. They should feel honored. The emperors whispered to each other, and their expressions gradually became relaxed. As long as the burial emperor coffin finished collecting energy and left, they would still be the ancient orthodoxy that dominated the world. They would not be a threat anymore. Besides, their sky prides had also obtained many opportunities of fortune in the depths of the barren forbidden area. They believed that it would be of great help in the fight for the throne. The appearance of the burial emperor coffin was a disaster. However, to them it was also an opportunity of fortune. At that thought, they could not help but feel that the burial emperor coffin was more pleasing to the eye. As for the billions of lives that had died because of the burial emperor coffin, they did not care at all. The burial emperor coffin was still wreaking havoc. Just as it was getting closer to the depths of the mountain range, a strange spatial fluctuation suddenly came from the void. A ripple appeared in the void, and a black-haired white-robed figure slowly walked out from the void, staring coldly at the burial emperor coffin. Upon seeing this person, the ancient powerhouses that had turned into coffin haulers did not show any change in expression. Instead, the emperors in the distance were shocked. It's him. Why is Chu Kuangren here all of a sudden? What is he trying to do? Is he trying to stop the burial emperor coffin? Are you kidding me? Hundreds of ancient powerhouses are dragging the coffin. How can he possibly resist such a force? What he's doing is no different from digging his own grave. Besides, why is he doing this? Don't tell me it's because of those ordinary people? The emperors looked at each other. They did not know why Chu Kuangren would suddenly attack, but they did not think that he could successfully stop the burial emperor coffin either. They watched the scene with great interest. Die! One of the ancient powerhouses looked at Chu Kuangren and unleashed a punch. His emperor's chi merged with his spiritual power to form a giant fist seal, and it smashed towards Chu Kuangren with an earth-shattering force. Puppet! Chu Kuangren casually raised his hand and unleashed a punch. With a loud explosion, the giant fist seal shattered on the spot. But Chu Kuangren's fist chi continued to move forward and hit that ancient powerhouse. Without any suspense, that ancient powerhouse was blasted into a mist of blood by Chu Kuangren's punch. That scene shocked the emperors who were watching the battle from afar. They gasped in disbelief. Why does it seem like his strength has increased again? How long has it been? It's only been 10 days since he wreaked havoc in the ancestors' lands. How did his strength increase again? Is it the same every day? ***. Did this guy refine all of the ancestors' land's foundation stones? That's impossible. How can he refine so many of them without at least 100 years of time? The emperors gulped as their minds buzzed. Chu Kuangren's strength had improved too quickly. Every time he appeared, he would improve tremendously. No matter how talented a Sky Pride was, it was still unbelievable for their strength to improve so quickly. I'd like to see what's inside this. Chu Kuangren looked at the burial emperor coffin curiously. Chapter 633. In order to protect Nangong Huang, Chu Kuangren appeared at the place where Lan Yu and the others had gone into closed-door meditation and killed an ancient cultivator with a single punch. The strength that Chu Kuangren displayed shocked the sovereigns who were watching from afar. Then, Chu Kuangren raised his hand towards the emperor burying coffin and unleashed another punch, activating his own invincible technique. The Taoist rhymes condensed into solid Taoist patterns that swept out mightily, illuminating the sun and moon reversal and the falling of the stars. Several ancient cultivators tried to block the attack, but it was no match for Chu Kuangren, whose strength had increased tremendously. A few clouds of blood mist exploded, and the heaven and earth reversal energy smashed onto the emperor burying coffin, causing a loud explosion. The emperor burying coffin was sent flying, and the coffin lid could no longer contain the surging chaotic chi inside. Several surges of chaotic chi escaped, Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up when he saw that, and he immediately grabbed the surging chaotic qi. Oh, there's so much chaotic qi in here. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up when he caught the chaotic qi in his hand. That much chaotic qi was a great opportunity of fortune. In Chu Kuangren's eyes, this ominous item was a priceless treasure. Today, I'm going to beat you up. Chu Kuangren smirked. There was no way he was going to miss out on so much chaotic qi. He raised his hand and unleashed his invincible technique again. The burial emperor coffin trembled a little. Then many chains shot out and bound the coffin lid tightly. There were even Dao patterns flowing on the surface of the coffin. It was very mysterious. This time the invincible technique only caused the coffin lid to shake a little, and no chaotic qi escaped. At this point, Chu Kuangren suddenly had a feeling that the burying emperor's coffin was not collecting life energy to resurrect anyone. Instead, it was to suppress something within the coffin. Was it that chaotic qi? Or was it something else? However, Chu Kuangren did not think too much about it. All he wanted to do now was to get his hands on that chaotic qi. I'd like to see how long you can suppress this coffin lid for. Chu Kuangren attacked again. The hundreds of ancient cultivators also attacked at the same time, and terrifying energy instantly collided with Chu Kuangren. The surrounding heaven and earth seemed to be on the verge of exploding. Chu Kuangren frowned slightly. This place is too close to where Nangong Huang and the others are cultivating in seclusion. I'm afraid it will affect them. I have to stay further away. Thinking of this, he condensed a huge mystical talisman. In an instant, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth gathered, transforming into rainbow-colored dragon qi that danced in the air. It was the divine transformation of the 9 dragons. As Chu Kuangren's strength continued to increase, so did the power of this rune. He was not afraid that it would become obsolete in a short period of time. At least for now, it was still a rather useful trump card. 9 streams of colorful dragon qi danced in the air and entered Chu Kuangren's body, causing his aura to skyrocket once again. 24 streams of emperor's qi and 9 streams of dragon qi unleashed a powerful shockwave that almost crushed the entire realm. All the emperors watching from afar were stunned. What kind of power was this? Was this the strength someone below the emperor realm could possess? They felt that if more than 10 emperors were to gang up on Chu Kuangren, they would not be able to withstand more than 3 punches and kicks from him. Chu Kuangren / combat strength was already close to that of an emperor. The ancient cultivators had also sensed Chu Kuangren / terrifying power. One by one, they channeled their spiritual energy and emperor / qi towards Chu Kuangren and unleashed all kinds of powerful techniques. Among them, there were quite a few who were not weaker than peerless emperors like the Sword Emperor of Wind and Cloud, and there were even many who were stronger than him. Those who could venture deep into the barren forbidden area were not ordinary people. Unfortunately, their opponent was Chu Kuangren. Heaven / S Vortex. The spiritual energy and emperor / qi within Chu Kuangren / S body surged and surged out, turning into a huge vortex that was formed by countless intertwining Taoist patterns. Surges of energy entered the vortex, but in the end, they were all disintegrated by the heaven / S vortex and even rebounded. The terrifying energy unleashed by the ancient experts turned into a violent storm that swept back and sent them flying. The emperor burying coffin was also thrown thousands of miles away. Meanwhile, Chu Kuangren / S attack was still ongoing. The Taoist physique within his body erupted and converged in the void, forming a huge rainbow-colored avatar. It was the myriad Taoist avatar. At this time, within the myriad Taoist avatar, there was an additional surge of plague evil physique / S power. It was so dense that it sent chills down everyone / S spine. What? Plague evil physique? What / S going on with that avatar? Why does it suddenly have another plague evil physique / S power? Plague evil physique, poison emperor. Don / T tell me he / S taken over the poison emperor / S power? How did he do it? The group of emperors looked at Chu Kuangren and felt goosebumps all over their bodies. Chu Kuangren / S abilities were too unfathomable. Moreover, he had an endless stream of strange techniques. Taking over someone else / S Taoist physique for his own use. It was not unheard of, but it was said that it could only be achieved by taking over someone else / S body. However, Chu Kuangren was obviously not one of them. No one knew how he had done it. Chu Kuangren could not care less about how shocked the sovereigns were. He unleashed a punch, and the avatar behind him did the same. The fist force traveled 1,000 miles and landed on the burying emperor's coffin, sending it flying once again. The ancient cultivators were chained to the emperor-burying coffin, so when the emperor-burying coffin was sent flying, they were sent flying as well. Chu Kuangren took a step forward and used the spatial conveyor technique to arrive before the emperor-burying coffin again. The avatar behind him unleashed another punch, and another few ancient cultivators were blasted apart by that terrifying energy. Chu Kuangren was unstoppable. He looked like he would not stop until he broke the emperor-burying coffin, and not many ancient cultivators could stop him. The emperor-burying coffin trembled slightly. Then the ancient cultivators stopped fighting and dragged the emperor-burying coffin away. It looked like they were trying to escape. Trying to escape? No way. Chu Kuangren smiled coldly and chased after them. The emperors who were watching the battle were dumbfounded. The emperor-burying coffin, which had rendered the entire emperor-S path helpless and forced all ancient orthodoxies to retreat, was forced to escape by Chu Kuangren. How could an ancient ominous item be so cheap? ISN to this Chu Kuangren a little too aggressive? One of the emperors gulped and said. At this time, many places on the emperor-S path had been turned into a wasteland because of the emperor-burying coffin-S rampage. Countless living beings were afraid that the emperor-burying coffin would suddenly pass by and devour them. In one of the cities, some of the cultivators there suddenly sensed a terrifying wave of energy rapidly approaching them. When they turned to look, they were all given a huge fright. It backslashes the emperor-burying coffin. Quick, run for your lives. The emperor-burying coffin passed through the emperor-S path. The emperor-burying coffin was now the most terrifying existence on the emperor-S path. Everyone panicked when they sensed the emperor-burying coffin-S arrival. They did not even have the time to pack their things and ran for their lives. However, someone suddenly sensed that something was wrong. The ancient cultivators who were dragging the coffin did not seem to care about them at all as they dragged the emperor-burying coffin away from them. It was as if they were hiding from something. Many cultivators were speechless when they thought of that. Could the emperor-burying coffin be afraid of anything? That was impossible. However, they soon saw a white-robed figure with a colorful avatar behind him chasing after the emperor-burying coffin. He threw out a punch that contained a terrifying fist energy that instantly killed an ancient cultivator who tried to stop him. That person was chasing after the emperor-burying coffin. At that moment, everyone felt like they saw a god descending to save the world. Chapter 634. Heavenly God, he's an heavenly god. One of the cultivators could not help but exclaim when he saw Chu Kuangren chasing after the burying emperor's coffin. Another cultivator could not help but smack his head and said, Heavenly God, my asterisk is, that's Chu Kuangren. Although that cultivator said that, he was also very shocked. He had seen Chu Kuangren before and knew that he was very powerful, but he did not expect him to be this strong. The burying emperor's coffin that was guarded by hundreds of ancient cultivators was being chased by Chu Kuangren alone. This kind of strength was too strong, wasn't it? Heavenly God. This is a real heavenly God. At that moment, many people in the city who saw Chu Kuangren chasing after the burying emperor's coffin could not help but kneel on the ground and worship him. They were not cultivators, so they had only heard of some of the famous figures in the cultivation world. However, they knew about the burying emperor's coffin. Hundreds of millions of living beings were killed by that coffin. To them, the only person who could stop this disaster was an heavenly God. The heavenly God has descended to save the world. Greetings, heavenly God. May the heavenly God subdue the demon in that coffin. Countless people kneeled on the ground and looked at Chu Kuangren's retreating figure with reverence on their faces. Even some of the weaker cultivators were shaken and wanted to kneel on the ground to worship Chu Kuangren. The ancient orthodoxies were helpless. The burying emperor's coffin that the Divine Radiance cult and Dark God cult avoided was being chased by Chu Kuangren. It was not wrong for someone like him to be called an heavenly god, right? Chu Kuangren chased after the burying emperor's coffin and destroyed all the ancient cultivators who tried to stop him with a single punch. His unparalleled combat strength and divine aura had forcefully created a ray of light in the emperor's road that was shrouded in darkness and despair. Wherever he went, everyone who witnessed this scene, be it cultivators or ordinary people, were extremely shocked and revered him like a god. In other words, once the burying emperor's coffin was settled, it would be much easier for Chu Kuangren to build a religion in the emperor's road. He could even build a religion that was no weaker than the two great religions if he put in some effort. Inside the barren forbidden area, the geniuses of the ancient orthodoxies were taking advantage of the absence of the emperor burying coffin to venture deep into the core to search for various opportunities. No one had been able to enter the core area of the desolate forbidden land for many years. There were indeed many opportunities here. Some forbidden prodigies also reaped great rewards. Boom! All of a sudden, a terrifying wave of monarch chi erupted from the peak of a mountain. Qin Tianchen walked out from a cave. His eyes flickered as he exclaimed, 3 streams of monarch chi. I've already cultivated 3 streams of monarch chi. Let's work harder. We can definitely catch up to Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren was a reincarnated emperor, so his Taoist core was extremely resilient. The others had been defeated by Chu Kuangren to the point that they had lost all will to fight back and were filled with despair. However, Qin Tianchen didn't. He wanted to catch up. This time, the core area of the desolate forbidden land was open to the public. This was his only chance to catch up to them. The core area of the desolate forbidden land has been explored by countless people over the years. However, because of the existence of the burying emperor coffin, they either died or went into hibernation in the black soil. Even the emperors are no exception. However, due to the incomplete heavenly Tao, the burying emperor coffin can't control the emperors to unleash their full combat strength. Otherwise, if the emperors were to pull the coffin, that would be the real terrifying burying emperor coffin. Qin Tianchen murmured. As a reincarnated emperor, he knew many secrets that even the emperors did not know about. He also knew how terrifying the burying emperor coffin was. If the burying emperor coffin could unleash its full power, even the emperors would bleed. However, even if it's an incomplete burying emperor coffin, no one can stop it in the emperor's path. Who knows how many people will die here? Qin Tianchen shook his head. He did not care. He had the same mindset as the emperors. No matter how many civilians died, it would not affect him. He only had one goal now, and that was to surpass Chu Kuangren and become an emperor again. Let's go to the black soil to look for opportunities. Qin Tianchen looked at the black soil in the distance. That was one of the most dangerous places in the core area of the desolate forbidden land. It was also the place where the burying emperor coffin was buried. However, now that the burying emperor coffin was gone, the danger level in the black soil was greatly reduced. Perhaps he could find some great opportunities there. Aside from Qin Tianchen, many other sky prides were also heading towards the black soil. Everyone wanted to find some great opportunities there while the burying emperor coffin was not around so that they could get ahead of the other sky prides. By Hongyu Wang Quan, Nine Flames, Niu Dali Sha Wuxia, and the other forbidden sky prides were all there. Besides them, there were also many other top-notch sky prides. Everyone looked at the black soil with a hint of fear in their eyes. Even though the burying emperor coffin was not around, the black soil still exuded a strange and ominous atmosphere. How can I find great opportunities if I'm afraid to move forward? Besides, now that the burying emperor coffin is gone, this is my best chance. Wang Quan gritted his teeth and was about to enter the vast and boundless black soil. Not only him, but Bai Hongyu, Niodali, Yunluozi, and the other forbidden sky prides also had a determined look in their eyes. That's right. If I don't even dare to enter the black soil, how can I even think about fighting for the throne? I might as well find a place to farm instead. I've heard that Emperor Shan has more than one throne. Even if I can't beat Chu Kuangren, I can still fight for the other throne. Can't beat Chu Kuangren? Humph. I don't believe that I can't beat him forever. Sha Wuxia snorted coldly. Just when everyone was about to step into the black soil, the entire black soil suddenly started to tremble. Everyone's expression changed and they were all shocked. What's going on? What's going on with this sudden tremor? Guys, look! Suddenly one of the sky prides exclaimed. In the middle of the black soil, a huge crack suddenly appeared, and a thick, strange and ominous aura erupted. In the distant sky, there was also a similar ominous aura that was rushing towards them. It was as if it was resonating with the crack. Everyone sensed something and looked towards the sky. All they saw was a black ray of light flying towards them. It was the burying emperor coffin. At that moment all the sky prides, including Qin Tianchen, were terrified. The burying emperor coffin. How can this be? How can the burying emperor coffin return so quickly? The blood on the coffin has yet to completely cover the coffin, so it shouldn't have absorbed enough energy. Why is it back so suddenly? Oh my God, what's going on? Run! Some of the sky prides could not help but flee in panic. The burying emperor coffin was too terrifying. Even if all of them were multiplied by 10, they still would not be able to fight it. Something's not right. Where are the coffin-dragging men? Qin Tianchen suddenly realized something. Originally, the burying emperor coffin was carried by hundreds of ancient cultivators, but now there were only a few of them left. Where did the rest of the coffin-dragging men go? Just when everyone was puzzled, they heard a burst of laughter coming from the sky. You want to go back to the ground? Have you asked for my permission? Chapter 635. Did you ask for my permission to go back to the ground? A burst of laughter came from the sky. With a burst of colorful light, Chu Kuangren, who had activated his 10,000 Taoist avatar, suddenly appeared in front of everyone. The incomparably majestic Dharma floated in midair, suppressing all the heaven's favorites. All the heaven's favorites were in awe. That kind of power was something that they could never hope to achieve in their entire lives. Chu Kuangren. I can't believe he's here. Also, what is he doing? What does he mean? Is he chasing after the emperor burying coffin? No, that's impossible. The emperor burying coffin is an ancient ominous item that all ancient orthodoxies would avoid. Why would anyone in this world chase after it? Everyone could not believe what they were seeing. What happened next was even more shocking. When Chu Kuangren saw that the emperor burying coffin was about to return to the ground, he sped up and took a step forward. The avatar behind him grabbed the chains that extended from the emperor burying coffin and pulled it back. Seeing that, the remaining few ancient cultivators immediately rushed towards Chu Kuangren and unleashed an extremely powerful energy wave. Their spiritual power and emperor's qi gushed towards Chu Kuangren. I've killed so many of them, but there are still a few left. Chu Kuangren curled his lips and unleashed a punch. His invincible technique was unleashed, causing the sun and moon to flip and the stars to fall to the ground. It was as if the power to destroy the world had blasted the few ancient cultivators apart. The sky prides at the scene were dumbfounded by what they saw. What kind of terrifying combat strength was that? What kind of horrifying monster was that? Even Qin Tianchen, the reincarnated emperor, was dumbfounded. How could something like chasing after the emperor burying coffin happen? Isn't this a little too far-fetched? Even if the heavenly Tao was incomplete and the emperor's road was restricted, the emperor burying coffin could not unleash its full power. However, it was still not something that an emperor could withstand. Chu Kuangren could chase after the emperor burying coffin all by himself and even kill hundreds of coffin carriers. With such power, could it be that this guy had become an emperor? Qin Tianchen could not help but feel a little hopeless. It was almost certain that Chu Kuangren would become an emperor. Once such a person became an emperor, he would definitely be an extremely powerful emperor. Even if he lived a second life, he would not be able to catch up to him. The other sky prides who still had a glimmer of hope to catch up to Chu Kuangren were also in despair. This monster. Wuxia gritted his teeth and said. There was a feeling of helplessness in his heart. The sky prides stared at Chu Kuangren in shock, but Chu Kuangren did not have the time to care about them. At this moment, he was fully focused on the burying emperor's coffin. He had to get his hands on the chaotic aura in the coffin. That kind of opportunity was more than 10 times more precious than all the treasures he had obtained after coming to the emperor's road. Come here. Chu Kuangren snorted coldly and forcefully dragged the emperor burying coffin over to him. The myriad Taoist avatar grabbed the coffin with both its hands. With one hand holding onto the coffin, it tried to open the coffin lid with the other. However, the burying emperor's coffin was an ancient, ominous item that was made of a special material. No matter what Chu Kuangren did, he could not open it. He frowned as he suddenly felt troubled. If I can't open it, then this is going to be difficult. Do I really have to throw it into the ground? Chu Kuangren murmured. His gaze swept across the strange patterns on the burying emperor's coffin. Suddenly, a thought flashed across his mind. Although the burying emperor's coffin was a strange and ominous item, it still looked like a treasure. I wonder if I can refine it? It was a very bold idea. After all, even emperors were extremely wary of ancient, ominous items. Hence, no one would dare to casually try to refine it. I'll give it a try. With that thought in mind, Chu Kuangren began to refine it. However, when he tried to use his spiritual power and emperor's qi to refine it, the strange qi within the burying emperor's coffin suddenly exploded and completely shattered his spiritual power and emperor's qi. It did not give him a chance to refine it at all. Not only that, but the strange qi also seized the opportunity to invade his body and destroy his bodily functions. At this time, if it were anyone else, even a top-notch emperor, their body would have exploded from this strange qi. Although Chu Kuangren's physical body was extremely strong, his bones and meridians were still damaged by this strange qi. However, other than his powerful physical body, Chu Kuangren also had the immortal body, which was one of his biggest trump cards. The moment his body was injured, the immortal body was instantly activated. His meridians, flesh, and blood were quickly reconstructed. Chu Kuangren's hand was still pressed on the burying emperor's coffin's surface. His spiritual power and emperor's qi continued to surge out, intending to refine it. Meanwhile, the strange qi within the burying emperor's coffin was also constantly destroying Chu Kuangren's body, but it was quickly reconstructed. I'll be fine even if you blast me into pieces. Chu Kuangren sneered. He was now at the 4th level of the immortal body blood rebirth. Unless he was shattered into particles smaller than ashes, as long as there was a drop of blood left, he could be reborn indefinitely. However, he could not see that the burying emperor's coffin had such an ability. This was also the reason why he dared to take the risk to refine the burying emperor's coffin. Just like that, one wanted to refine the other while the other wanted to destroy the other. Both parties were in a stalemate. The surrounding sky prides could not help but gulp when they saw Chu Kuangren's hand on the burying emperor's coffin. Qin Tianxin was especially dumbfounded. Since ancient times, no one had dared to touch the burying emperor's coffin. Yet Chu Kuangren did it. Not only that, but he also wanted to refine this ominous item. This lunatic, does he not want to live anymore? Qin Tianxin could not believe what he was seeing. Meanwhile, none of the sky prides dared to explore the black soil anymore. Now that the burying emperor's coffin was back, and with Chu Kuangren, who knew what would happen next? It was too dangerous to enter the black soil now. The burying emperor's coffin and Chu Kuangren, these are the two most dangerous existences in the emperor's path, right? One of the sky prides suddenly said, shocking everyone. Indeed, these two are the most dangerous existences. What do you guys think will happen if Chu Kuangren refines the burying emperor's coffin? One of the sky prides suddenly said. At that moment, no one could answer him. If the two most dangerous existences joined forces, it would not be as simple as 1 + 1. It's impossible. Qin Tianxin said with certainty. Since ancient times, no one has been able to refine the burying emperor's coffin, not even emperors. Chu Kuangren is indeed a genius, but even he can't refine this burying emperor's coffin. He seemed to have thought of Chu Kuangren's unbelievable feats, so he added, perhaps it'll be possible after he becomes an emperor. Chu Kuangren was too good at breaking people's assumptions, so even Qin Tianxin dared not say anything definite. In his opinion, Chu Kuangren might be able to do things that emperors could not after he became an emperor. However, since he was not an emperor yet, it was impossible for him to refine the burying emperor's coffin. Chapter 636. Above the black soil, Chu Kuangren and the emperor burying coffin were locked in a stalemate. One of them wanted to refine the other, while the other wanted to destroy the other. When the two forces collided in the void, it formed a terrifying force field that distorted the surrounding void. If anyone were to get within a certain range of these two forces, they would definitely be pulverized by that terrifying force field. Gradually, Chu Kuangren seemed to have gained the upper hand. Although the emperor burying coffin's power could destroy his body, his immortal body could quickly recover. Hence, even after half a day he was still unharmed. On the other hand, the emperor burying coffin's resistance was getting weaker and weaker. Oh, have you reached your limit? Chu Kuangren chuckled. He then took out the chaotic chi that he obtained from the emperor burying coffin and absorbed it into his body. His universal cauldron physique quickly converted it into spiritual power to replenish his strength. Then, he increased the speed of refining the emperor burying coffin. At that moment, the emperor burying coffin's lid suddenly creaked open. A ray of black light shone and enveloped Chu Kuangren. Then, a terrifying suction force erupted and sucked Chu Kuangren into the coffin. The sudden change made everyone dumbfounded. What's going on? Everyone looked at each other. Even Qin Tianxin was dumbfounded. Did he enter the emperor burying coffin? Since ancient times, even countless emperors didn't know what was hidden in the emperor's coffin. Not many emperors dared to touch such an ominous item, let alone enter it to find out what was inside. Yet now, Chu Kuangren had entered the emperor burying coffin in front of everyone. He was the first person to enter the emperor burying coffin since ancient times. At least that was what Qin Tianxin knew. What is hidden inside this emperor burying coffin? Perhaps this ancient riddle is about to be solved. Qin Tianxin was suddenly looking forward to it. However, at that moment, Sha Unpardonable, who was standing beside him, sneered. Such an ominous object would kill anyone who touches it, let alone entering it directly. In my opinion, Chu Kuangren is dead for sure. Not many people objected to that. Indeed, the burying emperor's coffin was an ominous item. Anyone who had anything to do with it would not end well. However, Chu Kuangren had entered the coffin directly. Although no one had ever done it before, it did not mean that it was a good thing. Perhaps there was an even more fatal killing intent hidden within the coffin. Could it be that Chu Kuangren has died just like that? Bai Hongyu said in bewilderment. That might not be the case. Maybe he has some other fortuitous encounter inside. Wang Quan shook his head and guessed. Stop joking around. What kind of opportunity of fortune could such an ominous object bring? This Chu Kuangren must be dead. Sha Unpardonable snorted coldly. That's right. That's an ominous item that even the ancient emperors were afraid of. There's no way Chu Kuangren will survive this. Zhou Yin of the Jiuing tribe sneered. At this moment, the emperor burying coffin suddenly shook. This strange movement caused everyone's expressions to change. Sha Wuxia and Nin Yan were even more bewildered. Couldn't be, could it? He really didn't die. However, after the emperor burying coffin trembled for a moment, it drilled into the crack in the black soil and disappeared. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the crack in the black soil closed and everything returned to normal. Haha, this time he's definitely dead. Sha Wuxia laughed out loud. Beside him, Zhou Yan also revealed a happy smile. The other forbidden sky pride such as Zi Wuji by Hongyu, and the others were more or less happy as well. They let out a long sigh of relief as if a huge boulder that had been pressing on their chests had been lifted. It's a shame that the brightest sky pride has fallen. Qin Tianxin shook his head and said. Then he held his head high and faced the sun. The next era belongs to me, Qin Tianxin. The faces of the other forbidden prodigies were also glowing. Their thoughts were clear, and their originally lifeless bodies were once again filled with vitality. The emperor burying coffin has returned to the black soil. This place is no longer suitable for exploration, so I plan to go to other places. Indeed, the black soil is not suitable for exploration. Besides, let's not disturb Chu Kuangren's rest here. Let's go. Using the black soil as a grave and the emperor burying coffin as a coffin. This is a privilege that not even the great emperors can enjoy. Chu Kuangren, you're so lucky. One by one, the sky prides left the black soil with smiles on their faces. Soon the vast black soil was empty. Not long after, the news of Chu Kuangren's death in the emperor burying coffin spread like wildfire across the entire emperor's road. Many people were in disbelief. Chu Kuangren was dead? The brightest sky pride in the emperor's road was dead. How was this possible? More than 10 emperors surrounded him, and so many ancient orthodoxies wanted to kill him, but he was still alive. How could he suddenly die? Everyone's first thought was disbelief. However, after many investigations, they finally confirmed that Chu Kuangren was sucked into the emperor burying coffin and buried in the black soil. The emperor burying coffin was an ancient ominous object. The black soil was the most treacherous place in the barren forbidden area. Under these two dangers, even an emperor would not be able to survive. let alone Chu Kuangren, who had yet to become an emperor. It was almost certain that Chu Kuangren was dead. All of a sudden, countless cultivators felt sorry for him. However, many ancient orthodoxies were overjoyed. The swordsman. Haha, Chu Kuangren, it's good that you're dead. The swordsman's clan leader laughed excitedly. This was the first time in countless years that he felt so happy. He was 10 times happier than when he first became the swordsman's clan leader. Pass down the order. There's a banquet today, and no one will leave until they're drunk. The swordsman's clan leader laughed. Yes. Besides the swordsman, the Wang family, Bai family, Qin family, demonic tribe, and other ancient orthodoxies were also excited by the news of Chu Kuangren's death. The ancient orthodoxies celebrated like it was the new year. In other places, the emperor burying coffin disaster had just passed, and many places were still immersed in sorrow. It was the complete opposite of the joy of the ancient orthodoxies. In a city, a sculptor took out a stone that he had treasured for a long time and carved a statue into it. He then placed it in the courtyard. "Daddy, who is he?" A little girl pointed at the stone statue and asked curiously. The sculptor did not answer. Instead, he pulled the little girl to kneel on the ground and kowtowed 3 times to the stone statue. "He's our great benefactor." When the coffin was dragged across the border, there was only death and no life. The various great ancient inheritances all withdrew like turtles, all of them cowering and afraid of death. Only he stepped forward bravely, fighting the demon coffin with all his might, ultimately returning peace to the world. The sculptor said. Countless commoners shared the same thoughts as the sculptor. To them, compared to the ancient orthodoxies who had abandoned the people of the world, Chu Kuangren was the savior of the world. Chu Kuangren, who had stepped forward bravely, was undoubtedly the savior of the world. Especially after the news of Chu Kuangren's death spread, the burying emperor's coffin no longer came out to do evil, which further confirmed the people's suspicions. Chu Kuangren had used his life to seal the emperor burying coffin. This rumor spread like wildfire. Countless commoners began to erect a monument for him. Chu Kuangren's influence was greater than ever before. Chapter 637. Chu Kuangren is dead? Inside the 7 Emotions sect. The news of Chu Kuangren's death had reached here. Ying Huang, who had just received the news, could not help but feel shocked. In front of her, Lung Ningyu, who was just asking for her guidance, felt her heart throbbing as her face turned pale. "Ying Huang, what's going on?" Lung Ningyu asked in a panic. Ying Huang looked at the forbidden sky pride who cultivated the path of forgetfulness in shock. However, she did not think too much about it, and told Lung Ningyu everything about Chu Kuangren's death in the black soil. After listening, Lung Ningyu's eyes became a little dull. She staggered out of the hall. Her thin and frail body suddenly exuded a strong sense of despair. Cold Moon Deity and Red Moon walked over and saw Lung Ningyu's state. They could not help but feel their hearts clench. "Senior sister, what's wrong?" Red Moon walked up and asked. He's dead. Lung Ningyu murmured listlessly. Her eyes seemed to have lost focus as she walked forward. The warm sunlight shone on her body, but she could not feel the slightest bit of warmth. She felt that her body was cold. It was as if there was something stuck in her chest. Something in her eyes flowed out uncontrollably. "Ah!" Finally, Lung Ningyu let out a heart-wrenching cry as a strong sense of grief emanated from her body. Those who are unemotional are deeply in love. Cold Moon Deity, who was behind her, suddenly felt a little heartache when she saw that. Was her decision back then the right one? Things happened too quickly and she was caught off guard. She did not expect Lung Ningyu to be so deeply in love. Moreover, she did not expect Chu Kuangren to fall so suddenly. How could the brightest and most dazzling prodigy disappear just like that? Senior sister, don't cry. Red Moon walked up and hugged Lung Ningyu from behind to comfort her. However, as she spoke, she could not help but cry too. Cold Moon Deity walked up from the side with a complicated expression. Lung Ningyu looked at her tearful face and pointed at her chest. "Honorable teacher, I've fallen in love with him, but it hurts here, it hurts so much." "Child, the pain will be gone soon." Cold Moon Fairy hugged her and looked towards the depths of the 7 Emotions sect. "Ningyu, it's time for you to enter the Wangqing Heaven." Wangqing Heaven, a secret realm of the 7 Emotions sect. Only those who cultivated the supreme Wangqing Dao could enter, and it was only there that the supreme Wangqing Dao could truly attain mastery. In the past, Cold Moon Fairy didn't let Lung Ningyu enter because she hadn't experienced love and hadn't truly cultivated the unmoved Dao. Without love, how could one forget? But now it was time for her to go. Under the black soil of the desolate forbidden land, inside the coffin, Chu Kuangren was sucked into it and arrived in an extremely dark space. His surroundings were filled with an endless amount of chaotic qi. The chaotic qi was so dense that a single strand of it could crush an entire mountain range. However, there were more than 1,000 of them surrounding Chu Kuangren, and their terrifying pressure was crushing his body. However, Chu Kuangren looked calm and collected as he looked around curiously. He was not in a hurry to absorb the chaotic qi. I can't believe there's such a vast space hidden inside the coffin. Interesting. No one has entered the coffin's inner space for countless years. Am I the first to enter? Chu Kuangren chuckled. Chu Kuangren unleashed his spiritual thoughts to explore his surroundings. However, his spiritual thoughts could only extend for 10 kilometers. The rest was suppressed by the chaotic qi. Chu Kuangren was not in a hurry. He randomly picked a direction and walked forward. After an hour or so, he came before a wall that was crimson in color and was engraved with countless strange patterns. These patterns seemed to contain some kind of strange Taoist rhyme. These are not patterns but Taoist patterns. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up as he looked towards the front of the wall. Countless Taoist patterns intertwined to form a magnificent Taoist pattern wall. This is getting more and more interesting. Chu Kuangren continued to walk towards the end of the wall. Vaguely, he heard a series of strange whispers. The messy syllables were sometimes low and sometimes sharp. There was no order to it, and it was as if it wanted to pierce through his eardrums and into his brain. The syllables were too strange. It made Chu Kuangren feel like his head was about to explode. No, this sound has the effect of affecting one's mind. Chu Kuangren focused his gaze and activated his mind power. He had the telekinesis talent which allowed him to block out most mental attacks. After casting a few layers of telekinesis barriers on himself, Chu Kuangren continued to walk forward. However, the inexplicable whispers were getting more and more frequent, and the effect was getting stronger. Even though Chu Kuangren's telekinesis barriers were effective, he could not hold on much longer. Not only that, but the further he went, the more the whispers affected his mind, and the deeper it affected his soul. Looks like I can't go any further for now. Chu Kuangren's soul was quite resilient. When he broke through to the Supreme Sage realm, he had absorbed an endless amount of purple qi into his body to reconstruct his soul. However, since this concerned his soul, he did not want to take the risk. After all, if he made the slightest mistake in such a strange place, who knew what would happen next? What's that? Chu Kuangren suddenly noticed a faint golden light not far away. He walked closer and saw that it was a golden corpse. The corpse was wearing a golden red robe. Judging from the shape of the corpse, it was a human or perhaps even a monk. Oh, looks like I'm not the first visitor. Chu Kuangren was a little surprised. He observed the corpse and found a line of words on the ground. The language of the underworld god, soul snatching. Before reaching the 10th level of the Bodhi Lotus scripture, one should not venture deeper. Looking at the small words, Chu Kuangren searched the corpse for a while and found a yin and yang ring on the corpse's knuckles. He took off the ring and used his spiritual sense to find an ancient scripture inside. Countless mysterious characters were recorded in it. This is a Soul Dao technique. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. Techniques related to Soul Dao were too rare. Even Chu Kuangren did not have one on him. I didn't expect to find a Soul Dao technique in this emperor-burying coffin, and under such circumstances. Chu Kuangren could not help but sigh. The whispers that he heard must be the language of the underworld god that the corpse in front of him was talking about. Just when he was troubled about how to deal with the language of the underworld god, this Soul Dao technique came knocking on his door. It really was like getting whatever he was missing. Chu Kuangren opened the technique and began to study it. It was an emperor scripture that recorded a technique called the Bodhi Lotus scripture. It was a Soul Dao technique that leaned towards Buddhism. The scripture was divided into 12 levels. Judging from the warning that the corpse left behind, Chu Kuangren would need to cultivate to at least the 10th level before he could proceed further. Chu Kuangren's soul had been modified by the purple haze, and coupled with his meditational clarity attribute, his comprehension was almost unbelievably strong. Studying the Emperor's scripture was a piece of cake for him. Soon, he had thoroughly understood all 12 levels of the Bodhi Lotus scripture. All that was left was to cultivate. Chapter 638. Inside the burying Emperor's coffin, Chu Kuangren had obtained the Emperor's Bodhi Lotus scripture by chance. After thoroughly understanding it, he began to cultivate it. In the chaotic mist, Chu Kuangren sat with his legs crossed and channeled the spiritual power and Emperor's chi within his body. The levels of the Bodhi Lotus scripture continued to rise. Inside his spiritual mound, a golden lotus throne suddenly appeared, and on it sat a tiny person. That tiny person was Chu Kuangren's soul. On the lotus throne, golden light flowed as 8 petals swayed with mysterious Taoist rhymes. The 8 petals signified that he had cultivated the Bodhi Lotus scripture to the 8th level, which was also the highest level he could reach at this stage. As for the 9th level, he needed to reach the Emperor's realm. The 9th level requires an Emperor's realm to reach, but to go deeper, I need to reach at least the 10th level. This is not an easy task. But how can I be an ordinary person? A glint flashed across Chu Kuangren's eyes. If it were any other place, he would have to stop here. However, he was inside the burying Emperor's coffin, and he was surrounded by endless chaotic qi. The chaotic qi could be converted into any elemental energy. At the same time, it could also be converted into soul energy. Since Chu Kuangren possessed the universal cauldron physique, he could absorb and refine the chaotic qi into soul energy to cultivate the Bodhi Lotus scripture. Time to refine it. Chu Kuangren activated the universal cauldron physique to its maximum capacity. In an instant, the surroundings trembled, and an endless amount of chaotic qi surged towards Chu Kuangren. Chaotic qi was a rare treasure in this world. Even one strand of it was enough to make countless emperors fight for it. However, the chaotic qi that surged towards Chu Kuangren was like rivers flowing into the sea. There were tens of thousands of them, and it was incredibly vast. Boom! The moment the chaotic qi came into contact with Chu Kuangren's physical body, his body trembled. The universal cauldron physique could indeed refine the chaotic qi quickly, but there was just too much of it. It was so much that Chu Kuangren's physical body could not withstand the terrifying pressure when the energy entered his body. If it were any other cultivator, they would have been instantly pulverized. Besides the universal cauldron physique, I also have the immortal body. The immortal body was activated. The 2 godly physiques activated at the same time, helping Chu Kuangren to quickly refine the chaotic qi and cultivate the Bodhi Lotus scripture. Very quickly, the Golden Lotus platform and soul in the spiritual ruin received a large amount of soul force converted from chaotic aura and rapidly strengthened. On the Golden Lotus platform, the Taoist aura gradually condensed into a material form and transformed into profound Taoist patterns that emanated a mysterious fluctuation. The 9th petal was formed. He had successfully cultivated the 9th layer of the Bodhi Lotus Sutra. However, Chu Kuangren did not stop because of that. The chaotic qi around him continued to surge towards him as it continued to be refined. The chaotic qi in the burying Emperor's coffin could be said to be endless. Since Chu Kuangren had the universal cauldron physique, he would not let go of this opportunity. The 10th petal, then the 11th petal time was unknown in the primal chaos. Chu Kuangren had no idea how much time had passed or how much chaotic qi he had refined as he continued to cultivate the Lotus Sutra. Until this day, Chu Kuangren abruptly opened his eyes. A golden light radiated from his body. As the golden light manifested, an illusory figure sitting on a 12th-stage golden lotus throne appeared. That illusory figure looked exactly like Chu Kuangren, but its expression was solemn like a bodhisattva that was impervious to all techniques. It was Chu Kuangren's 12th-stage Bodhi soul. The Bodhi spirit shone with a brilliant Buddhist light that illuminated the chaos. Countless chaotic qi retreated, and the strange murmurs of the Lord of the Underworld could no longer affect Chu Kuangren. In the depths of the burying Emperor's coffin, a huge face suddenly opened its eyes and looked into the distance in shock. This aura. What's going on? What did that kid do? The 12th layer of the Bodhi Lotus Sutra. Even an emperor's soul is no match for mine now, Chu Kuangren murmured. The 9th layer of the Bodhi Lotus Sutra was already comparable to an emperor's soul, yet Chu Kuangren had cultivated it all the way to the 12th layer, the highest level of the Bodhi Lotus Sutra. If it were not for the fact that the Lotus Sutra only had 12 layers, Chu Kuangren could even use the boundless chaotic qi to continue his cultivation. This trip has been worth it. Chu Kuangren kept the Bodhi spirit, and the Buddhist light that filled the sky disappeared. A satisfied smile appeared on his face. Just the 12th layer of the Bodhi Lotus Sutra alone was already a great opportunity for him. It was even greater than when he ascended the Emperor Mountain and became an emperor. After all, even an emperor did not have the soul energy that he did now. I wonder what other secrets are buried in the depths of this burying emperor's coffin. I'm getting more and more curious. Chu Kuangren kept the golden corpse in front of him. It was obvious that this corpse belonged to a powerful Buddha emperor when it was still alive. Chu Kuangren had also obtained the Bodhi Lotus scripture from that person, so he could not sit back and watch this corpse continue to be corroded by the chaotic qi. Chu Kuangren continued to walk deeper into the burying emperor's coffin. The murmurs of the Lord of the Underworld became more and more frequent, and its power grew stronger as well. Towards the end, even an emperor would not be able to withstand the impact of the murmurs of the Lord of the Underworld. However, Chu Kuangren was not affected at all. It was as if he was taking a stroll in the park. The 12th layer of the Bodhi spirit was too powerful. There were not many soul techniques in this world that could affect it. Gradually, Chu Kuangren saw a strange blood-colored light in the distance. When he got closer, he saw that the blood-colored light was formed by 4 blood-colored light pillars, and there was a person in the middle of these light pillars. It was a white-robed man. The man looked very handsome. His eyes were closed, and it looked like he was in a deep sleep. The 4 blood-colored light pillars pierced through the man's limbs, holding him firmly in midair. What surprised Chu Kuangren even more was that although the man looked like he was in a deep sleep, his body was emitting an extremely terrifying aura. That aura was stronger than anything Chu Kuangren had ever felt before. Not only that, but 1 or 2 bursts of gray mist would occasionally emerge from the man's body and merge into the boundless chaotic mist. This seemingly boundless chaotic energy was actually being emitted from this man's body. Just how terrifying was this man? Chu Kuangren was a little shocked. He activated his Eye of Revelation and quickly checked the mysterious man's information. Primal Chaos Taoist Master. Chaotic Physique. Taoist Cultivation Level. Currently sealed. His soul and consciousness are being corroded. It was not an easy task for Chu Kuangren to obtain information about the person in front of him. The other party's level was too much higher than his, but the information he obtained was enough to make him fall into deep thought. The chaotic physique is the #1 supreme Taoist physique among the 3,000 physiques. What realm is the Taoist master realm? Is it an immortal? Is it these 4 blood-colored light pillars that are corroding my soul? Chu Kuangren looked at the 4 blood-colored light pillars and carefully sensed them. He suddenly felt an unparalleled resentment from them. It was as if billions of living beings were roaring and wailing in front of him. Chapter 639. This blood-red light beam contains some sort of grudge that can corrode one's soul. Is this the true purpose of the burying emperor's coffin? To corrode this man's soul? Chu Kuangren murmured. Then, he slowly walked forward and reached out his hand to touch the man's body. The book of physiques in his soul instantly reacted. The chaos physique was the #1 physique among the 3,000 Taoist physiques. To Chu Kuangren it was a rare research material. There was probably no other physique in the entire firmament star that could match it. At that thought, Chu Kuangren no longer tried to figure out why the white-robed man was trapped here. Instead, he began to study this physique. However, at that moment, the void in front of him trembled, and a gigantic face appeared before him. It was a pitch-black face with indistinguishable facial features. However, a pair of pitch-black eyes were like 2 black holes. A strange and inexplicable power flowed into the eye and invaded it. That energy suppressed one's soul. However, Chu Kuangren had already cultivated to the 12th level of the Bodhi Lotus scripture. That soul energy was completely useless against him. You're immune to my will? How can a mere ant below the Emperor realm be immune to my will? Tell me, who are you? The gigantic face stared at Chu Kuangren in disbelief. Chu Kuangren stared back at that face and activated his Eye of Revelation. A manifestation of the underworld god's will. An expert in soul Tao. The manifestation of the underworld god's will. It seemed that all the soul attacks he had suffered along the way were caused by this guy. Another so-called god? Through his eye of revelation, he could tell that this manifestation of the underworld god's will was only an expert in soul Tao and had no other offensive techniques. In other words, it was no threat to him. At that thought, a playful smile appeared on Chu Kuangren's face. He had been meeting a lot of gods lately. The divine light god, the dark god, and now the underworld god. Weren't these gods a little too cheap? Or was it because he was too lucky to meet them? Heh, what an interesting guy. At that moment, a chuckle came from beside Chu Kuangren. He turned around and saw a white-robed man sitting on top of the white-robed man, looking at him curiously. This white-robed man was the dormant white-robed man. However, he was not in a physical form but a spiritual form. Humph, Tao Master of Chaos, I didn't expect you to suddenly awaken. The will incarnation of the Nether God was also startled by the sudden voice, and it turned to look at the white-robed man with a cold snort. Yo, God of the underworld, long time no see. The white-robed man looked at the embodiment of the will of the Nether God and smiled faintly, as if he was greeting an old friend. However, the incarnation of the Nether God's will did not have any joy in its eyes. It looked at the white-robed man with endless coldness in its eyes. Young man, you have a familiar aura. It's the Bodhi Lotus Sutra. What's your relationship with Putul? The white-robed man, the Chaos Taoist master, looked at Chu Kuangren and asked curiously, Putua? Chu Kuangren took out the golden corpse that he had obtained earlier and said, I obtained this Lotus Sutra from him. The Chaos Taoist master's expression changed when he saw the golden corpse, and then he looked at the incarnation of the Nether God's will with a gloomy expression. You killed him. Oh, it's him. I can't even remember how many eras it was. This guy overestimated himself and wanted to save you, so he and a large group of people tried to open the Emperor burial coffin. However, he was the only one who entered, and in the end, he couldn't even withstand the language of the underworld god. The incarnation of the Nether Gods will set in disdain. Then it seemed to have thought of something, and it looked at Chu Kuangren in shock. Did you obtain this Lotus Sutra from this corpse? Yes. Impossible. You've only been in the Emperor burial coffin for 3 months. If you obtained the Lotus Sutra from this corpse, how could your soul energy resist the language of the underworld god and come here? The incarnation of the Nether God's will was in disbelief. How could one's soul be reborn to such an extent in just 3 months? Moreover, it was in a place like the Emperor burial coffin. It was ridiculous. So I've been cultivating this Lotus Sutra for more than 3 months. Chu Kuangren had a look of realization on his face. The incarnation of the Nether God's will and the Chaos Taoist master were stunned. You actually care about this? Isn't the main point that you've cultivated the Lotus Sutra to such an extent in just 3 months? What kind of freak has entered this Emperor burial coffin? The underworld god's consciousness clone and the Chaos Taoist master. Hey, I don't really care about the grudges between you two, but this body of yours is quite useful to me, Chaos Taoist master. Chu Kuangren looked at the Chaos Taoist master's body and continued to study it, planning to make it his own. The Chaos Taoist master had an indescribable feeling of being stared at by Chu Kuangren. However, he could not figure out what Chu Kuangren was trying to do, and he could only move his soul. He could not do anything to Chu Kuangren at all. Humph, kid, do you really think this Emperor burial coffin is a place where you can do whatever you want? The underworld god's consciousness clone snorted, and a terrifying surge of energy erupted from its huge face. A series of strange syllables were spat out from its mouth, carrying with it a mysterious soul fluctuation that continuously attacked Chu Kuangren's soul. However, the Bodhi spirit was indestructible. Even the underworld god's consciousness clone could not do anything to Chu Kuangren. How can this be? Even an emperor's soul can't withstand my attack, so how can you resist it? In just 3 short months, how far have you cultivated the Lotus Sutra? The underworld god's consciousness clone could not believe what it was seeing. Even if it was only a strand of its consciousness clone, the person in front of it was only a cultivator below the emperor realm. How could his soul be so strong? You're very noisy. Chu Kuangren glanced at the underworld god's consciousness clone and raised his hand to unleash his invincible technique. The cosmos reversal power instantly erupted. That punch caused the surrounding chaotic chi to rumble, and it immediately destroyed the underworld god's consciousness clone. Profound. How can a cultivator below the emperor realm like you know profound? The Chaos Taoist master was a little shocked. He had lived for countless years and had seen countless sky prides, but he had never seen anyone who could master profound techniques below the emperor realm. Could it be that he had been trapped in this emperor burial coffin for so long that the outside world had been turned upside down to such an extent? Even a cultivator below the emperor realm could easily master profound techniques? The Chaos Taoist lord did not know that the Chu Kuangren in front of him was the most unreasonable freak in history. He could not be judged by the logic of a normal cultivator. Kid, just you wait. I'll be back. The voice of the underworld god's consciousness clone came from within the chaotic chi. It seemed like Chu Kuangren's punch did not destroy the underworld god's consciousness clone. However, Chu Kuangren was not surprised. Obviously, he had expected that. The Eye of Revelation showed that the underworld god's consciousness clone was connected to the Emperor burial coffin. As long as the Emperor burial coffin was not destroyed, the underworld god would not disappear. Chapter 640. After the incarnation of the underworld god left, Chu Kuangren continued to study the Chaos Taoist master's chaos physique. He realized that although the Chaos Taoist master looked fine on the outside, his insides were already riddled with holes. Otherwise, the primal chaos aura wouldn't have escaped from his body uncontrollably. These were the fruits of the Chaos Taoist master's many years of cultivation. While he was studying the chaos physique, Chu Kuangren looked at the Chaos Taoist master, who was staring at him curiously. Why don't you tell me about the situation inside this emperor burying coffin, and what happened between you and the underworld god? Sounds good. But before that, I have a question for you. Go ahead. What's your name? Only then did Chu Kuangren remember that he had not introduced himself. He smiled and said, My apologies for my negligence. My name is Chu Kuangren. The Chaos Taoist master smiled. If you want to talk about me and the underworld god, you'll have to start from the primordial era. Primordial era? Wow, that's quite a long time ago. Chu Kuangren was intrigued. The primordial era was an extremely long time ago, so long that one had to use a yuan year to record the changes in time. A yuan year was equivalent to 129,600 years. It had been 66 yuan years since the primordial era. During the primordial era, when the heavenly Tao was first born, there were many powerful beings in the firmament star. Back then, the humans were as weak as ants, and they were nothing more than food to the endless stream of ancient creatures. However, later on, some of the living beings in the primordial era realized that the lowly and weak humans actually possessed a unique power. When the humans had extreme trust or respect for them, that unique power could actually strengthen their abilities. The ancient living beings called that power the power of faith. Hence, the concept of the gods came into being. The humans believed in the gods, and the gods helped the humans overcome their hardships by obtaining the power of faith from the humans. The two complemented each other. That period of time was known as the era of the ancient deities. However, things changed later on. Through observing nature and the divine power of the gods, humans gradually grasped abilities similar to those of the gods through acquired methods. That was the origin of the firmament star realm cultivators. After understanding cultivation, the humans gradually became stronger. Although they were still no match for some of the powerful ancient creatures, they were no longer as reliant on the gods. At this point, the gods could no longer sit still. Without the power of faith, their abilities could not be strengthened, and because of some kind of restriction, they could not learn the cultivation methods of the human race. Thus, a group of gods held a meeting. They decided to let the human race suffer, and then they would lend a helping hand. This way they could regain faith. Moreover, they secretly suppressed the human cultivator factions, not allowing them to grow too strong, preventing them from exceeding their control. This method was indeed effective. In the face of the endless disasters, the human cultivators, who had just risen to power, could not resist at all. Soon they went back to seek help from the gods. However, there was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in this world. The whereabouts of the gods were exposed, and they faced resistance from the human race. Although the human race was weak and was suppressed by the gods, the blood of the human race did not cool down. The human race refused to be a captive sheep. The human race would never be slaves. As they fought back again and again, the human cultivators grew stronger and stronger. Gradually, they gained the power to fight against the gods. At the beginning of the ancient times, the war against the gods began. This was a long drawn-out war. Although the humans now possessed the power to rival the gods were born from the firmament star. Some of the stronger gods had even reached a state where they would not die as long as the firmament star was not destroyed, so it was impossible for them to be destroyed. Therefore, the human race could only seal the gods one by one. The Chaos Taoist Master was one of the main forces in the war against the gods. The god he fought was the strongest among the gods, the underworld god. Although the Chaos Taoist Master and some other human powerhouses worked hard, they finally sealed the underworld god into the endless void. However, the Chaos Taoist Master was also heavily injured. His physical body and soul were both locked in this emperor-burying coffin, trapped until now. Although my physical body is heavily injured and my soul is extremely weak after being locked in here, it is not easy to kill me with the underworld god sealed. The Chaos Taoist Master smiled faintly. That is why there are rumors of death when the emperor-burying coffin passes through. The incarnation of the underworld god wants to gradually disintegrate your soul by collecting the resentment of billions of living beings. Death when the emperor-burying coffin passes through? The Chaos Taoist Master frowned. What do you mean? Chu Kuangren then told him about the legend of the emperor-burying coffin. The Chaos Taoist Master was even more confused after hearing this. There was only an incarnation of the underworld god's will in the emperor-burying coffin. Even if the experts of the human clan couldn't save me, they should have had a way to suppress it. Why did they let the emperor-burying coffin slaughter billions of lives of the human clan? Also, Putua was just a small soldier who followed me around. Why did he come to save me? There must be someone more proficient in Soul Dao than him. I have too many questions. Little guy, can you tell me about the situation outside? Chu Kuangren nodded. Sure. He then told him everything he knew. Now, it was the Chaos Taoist Master's turn to listen. When he heard about the era of Dharma's end and the ancient era, he could not help but be shocked. He could not believe that the human race had become so weak. When he heard about the 9 heavens, he was even more confused. The 9 heavens? What the hell is that? Why haven't I heard of it before? The changes in the outside world are much bigger than I thought. It seems that many things have happened after I was trapped in the emperor-burying coffin. The Chaos Taoist Master shook his head and said emotionally, Little guy, have you heard of the heavenly yellow Taoist Master? No. What about the Taoist Master Jian Linglong? No. What about the Buddhist Master? He's the Grand Master of Putua. I know about the founder of the Buddhist sect, but whether or not the Buddhist Master exists is still an unsolved mystery. I'm not sure. The Chaos Taoist Master asked a few people, but Chu Kuangren had never heard of any of them. However, he made a mental note of them. After a series of questions, the Chaos Taoist Master gave up. He was sure that the outside world was no longer the same as the one he knew. He did not know if the old friends in his memory still existed. The atmosphere became quiet. What are you doing? The Chaos Taoist Master glanced at Chu Kuangren and asked. Researching your Supreme Taoist physique. Researching? You can even research the Supreme Taoist physique. The Chaos Taoist Master looked at Chu Kuangren strangely. Then, his body trembled as if he had seen something unbelievable. You have the aura of many Taoist physiques on you? How did you do it? Researching, Chu Kuangren said seriously. The Chaos physique was indeed the #1 Taoist physique. Chu Kuangren estimated that he had spent 10 days to research less than half of it. During these 10 days, he did not stay idle either. Whenever he had the chance, he would grab the Chaos Taoist Master and ask him about cultivation realms. After all, the Chaos Taoist Master was an ancient being. If he did not seize this opportunity, he would have wasted his time in the emperor-burying coffin. Chapter 641. The Emperor Realm is divided into 3 realms. The Emperor Realm is divided into the Emperor Realm, the Heavenly Honorable Realm, and the Taoist Realm. The Emperor Realm is divided into 9 realms. The lower 3 realms are the Lesser Mastery, the middle 3 realms are the Greater Mastery, and the upper 3 realms are the Full Mastery. Amidst the chaos, A gentle voice rang out as if he was preaching. It was the Chaos Taoist Lord who was explaining the Emperor realm to Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren looked like he had a sudden realization. He pondered for a while before he asked, "Do immortals exist in this world?" The question stunned the Chaos Taoist Lord. He then smiled and shook his head. "So many years have passed, but I can't believe that the cultivators of this world are still struggling with this question." "Alright then, I'll tell you about it. Legend has it that immortals come from beyond the heavens. They once visited the firmament world in ancient times and came into contact with the first batch of human cultivators. They once said that the end of the path of cultivation is immortals. However, the immortals disappeared after that. However, the concept of immortals has been passed down. I can't believe that there are still cultivators who are researching this topic." Chu Kuangren pondered. "I see." Buzz buzz. At that moment, Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. A surge of chaotic energy suddenly emerged from his body and spread in all directions. Did it really work? The Chaos Taoist Lord was dumbfounded. He did not expect Chu Kuangren to be able to use the power of the Chaos Physique after studying his body for more than 10 days. What kind of power was that? "I've obtained the number 1 Taoist physique among the 3,000 physiques." Chu Kuangren smirked. He could feel that the Chaos Physique was extremely powerful. Almost no one in the same realm could match up to the Chaos Physique. "Kid, here I come again." At that moment, a gigantic face suddenly appeared in the chaos. It was the incarnation of the Netherworld God's will. It stared at Chu Kuangren with a cold, murderous intent. "This time I won't fail like the last time. I'd like to see what tricks you have up your sleeves." Gates of the underworld open. Amidst the chaos, a strange fluctuation emerged. A black door with countless ferocious ghosts carved on it suddenly appeared. Thousands of ferocious ghosts and Yakshasuras rushed out from the door and pounced towards Chu Kuangren. A form of soul energy. Chu Kuangren was slightly surprised. These soul forms possessed offensive abilities. Chu Kuangren raised his hand and activated his technique of invincibility. With a single punch, he shattered the thousands of evil spirits. But it was of no use. There was almost no end to the evil Asuras. Chu Kuangren continued to attack, shattering them into pieces. Meanwhile, the Ashura ghosts let out strange cries as they attacked. It was either a wretched howl or a shrill scream. These voices were constantly disturbing Chu Kuangren's soul. The gate of the underworld. "I didn't expect you to be able to use this will incarnation to communicate with your main body in the void, and release the gate of the underworld." The Chaos Tao Master's expression changed slightly. The gate of the underworld was one of the divine abilities of the god of the underworld. This divine ability could transform the soul power of the god of the underworld into thousands of evil ghosts and demons, which could be used to launch the most brutal attacks against the enemy. In the primeval era, once the god of the underworld used this move, everything within 1,000,000 miles would be covered by evil ghosts and demons, turning it into a purgatory. "That's right. Chaos Tao Lord, do you think you can seal me forever? After so many years, your seal has already cracked. Although it's not enough for me to completely escape, it's enough for my will incarnation to communicate with my main body and activate the gate of the underworld. These Ashura ghosts may not be able to harm your physical body, but it's more than enough to deal with this kid." The god of the underworld's will incarnation sneered. He then looked at Chu Kuangren. "Young lad, no matter how strong your soul energy is this time, the soul energy of my real body is limitless. The evil spirits and Rakshasas in my door of the underworld are also limitless. Where can you run to in this emperor-bearing coffin?" He was a little smug. However, Chu Kuangren remained calm as he looked at the evil ghost and demon in front of him and chuckled. "Are you planning to fight a battle of attrition with me? Unfortunately, among all the battles, I'm most proficient in protracted battles." He took a step forward and charged into the crowd of evil ghosts. He unleashed all kinds of Tao techniques. Countless evil ghosts and demons were destroyed by him one by one. "It's a shame that my main body is sealed, so this gate of the underworld can't transfer too much soul power to me at once. Otherwise, I could condense an emperor-level evil ghost and kill him for sure." The god of the underworld's will incarnation thought to himself. However, he then looked at Chu Kuangren, who was still unleashing his emperor techniques, and sneered. "Although I can't kill you at once, There's still a limit to one person's strength. Let's see how long you can last. The battle continued. The god of the underworld's incarnation and the Chaos Taoist master were watching. However, they gradually realized that something was wrong. This kid's Tao is being honed through this endless battle. The Chaos Taoist master was a little surprised. The god of the underworld's incarnation also noticed that Chu Kuangren's Tao was constantly improving during the battle with the evil Ashura ghost. He would use this battle as a capital to improve himself. The Tao of invincibility was to be undefeatable and undefeatable. Such a Tao could only be fully displayed in battle. To Chu Kuangren, battle was a way to verify what he had learned. And it was also a process where he could fill in the gaps and improve himself. To him, battle was a form of enjoyment. Let's see how long you can last. The god of the underworld's incarnation glared at Chu Kuangren, who was getting stronger as the battle progressed. He refused to believe that Chu Kuangren's spiritual power had no limits. This battle, it lasted for a long time. It was so long that Chu Kuangren's spiritual power and Emperor's Qi were almost depleted. But he was incomparably contented. Vaguely, he had reached the bottleneck of the ultimate Tao. Above the ultimate Tao was the Emperor's Tao. As long as I break through this bottleneck, my Tao will be able to reach the Emperor's Tao. Just a little bit more. Chu Kuangren said with a burning gaze. He wants to prove his Tao through strength. The Chaos Taoist master looked at Chu Kuangren and could not help but exclaim. Although it was not common to use strength to prove one's Tao during his era, it was not rare either. However, he did not expect Chu Kuangren to use the gate of the underworld to prove his Tao through strength under such circumstances. That was a crazy move. His Tao is very unique. Perhaps that's why he's able to use this method to prove his Tao. But will it really work? The Chaos Taoist master murmured. He could sense that the spiritual power and Emperor's Qi within Chu Kuangren's body was almost depleted. At that moment, a huge suction force suddenly erupted from Chu Kuangren's body, sucking in the surrounding chaotic Qi into his body. The universal cauldron physique was activated. As the chaotic Qi was refined, the spiritual power and Emperor's Qi within Chu Kuangren's body were quickly replenished, and his aura was once again at its peak. Is that even possible? The Chaos Taoist master and the god of the underworld's incarnation were dumbfounded. Fight! Fight! Chu Kuangren laughed. With the descendant self sword in his hand, he battled against the endless evil spirits and demons, gradually entering a state of oblivion. Chapter 642. Inside the burial emperor's coffin, the battle between Chu Kuangren and the evil spirit Rakshasa raged. It was unknown how long the battle had lasted. A month? 2 months? Chu Kuangren could not remember. However, the more he fought, the more excited he became. Gradually, he entered a realm where he forgot himself, and his understanding of his Tao increased rapidly. Somehow there was a barrier in front of him. Break it! Break this barrier! Every thought in Chu Kuangren's mind and every nerve in his brain were screaming. Break it! Break it! Oh no, is he going to achieve the Emperor realm? The Nether God's clone's expression changed. He was not afraid that Chu Kuangren would achieve the Emperor realm. Even if Chu Kuangren became an emperor immediately, he would not be able to destroy the burial emperor's coffin and kill him. However, he was here to kill Chu Kuangren. How could he accept that he was helping someone else achieve the Emperor realm? Gates of the underworld close. The Nether God's clone wanted to retract his technique. However, as if Chu Kuangren had sensed his intention, a terrifying surge of energy suddenly erupted from behind him. It turned into a giant avatar that rushed to the gates of the underworld and forcefully blocked it. The power of that avatar was terrifying. It even contained the power of several supreme Taoist physiques, including Chu Kuangren's newly acquired chaos physique. During the battle, he had integrated it into his avatar. The Nether God's expression changed drastically. This guy, being affected by the Thousand Taoist avatar, he could not completely close the gates of the underworld. After all, he was just a will clone, so he could not use the Nether God's divine ability as he wished. Not to mention that his body was still sealed. Azura demons, come again. The more the merrier. Chu Kuangren laughed out loud. The Thousand Taoist avatar opened the gates of the underworld, and countless Azura demons that were formed from the Nether God's soul energy rushed out. Chu Kuangren once again rushed forward to fight them. His Tao of invincibility and technique of invincibility were becoming more complete. Crack vaguely. A crisp sound rang in Chu Kuangren's mind. It was as if something had shattered. It was the barrier. The barrier that led to the Emperor realm. Break. Chu Kuangren let out a long roar, and an explosion erupted in his mind like a thunderclap. That barrier was instantly blasted into pieces. An incomparably thick Emperor's aura quickly spread out with him as the center, shaking the entire burying Emperor coffin. On this day, Chu Kuangren attained his Taoist Tao in his coffin. Desolate forbidden land, black soil. Known as the most ominous place, the black earth buried the most ominous burial Emperor's coffin, which was why this place was desolate and uninhabited. But today, the black soil suddenly began to shake. A terrifying ripple spread out from the black soil. The entire Emperor's road was affected by this ripple. In an instant, the wind and clouds changed color, and heaven and earth shook. The profound tune of the Tao reverberated in the sky as golden lotuses appeared, dragons and phoenixes manifested, golden auspicious clouds converged, and various other phenomena occurred. Within the Emperor's road, all the ancient orthodoxies were instantly alarmed. What's going on? Where did this terrifying phenomenon come from? Heavens, did someone become a martial emperor? The Emperor Mountain is not open yet. Who could become a martial emperor? Where did this phenomenon come from? Why can't I sense it? The source of this phenomenon is too terrifying. It's not something that people of our cultivation realm can sense. Emperor, this is definitely related to an emperor. All the orthodoxies cultivators were alarmed. They rushed out into the sky and sent surges of spiritual thoughts across the Emperor's road. Countless emperors were trying to find the source of the phenomenon. However, no matter how much they pushed their spiritual thoughts to the limit and scanned every corner of the Emperor's road, they still could not pinpoint the source of the phenomenon. The fluctuation of this phenomenon was so intense that it covered the entire Emperor's road and affected countless living beings. There was no way to find out. Meanwhile, far above the 9 heavens, the emperors had also sensed this fluctuation. This aura. Someone has become an emperor. That can't be right. The Emperor Mountain is not open yet. Who has the ability to become an emperor? Wait, the Emperor Mountain is not open yet. Could it be? Some emperors sucked in a cold breath. Someone had become an emperor before the Emperor Mountain was opened. There could only be one reason for that. That was, this person had proven his Tao through strength. Proving one's Tao through strength was simply too difficult. Even in ancient times, not many people could do it. Not to mention it was in this era. How monstrous must this person be to prove his Tao through strength? Wait, could it be that little guy? The little guy who solved the demon plague? Yes, I heard that this person has also entered the Emperor's road and caused quite a commotion. He has offended quite a few ancient orthodoxies. It can't be him. At this moment, an indifferent voice came from the vast universe. The emperors were very surprised. It's Celestial Venerable Yu. Celestial Venerable Yu has also been alarmed by this emperor's Tao aura. The voice rang out again. The disaster of the emperor burial coffin was solved by this person, but he was also sucked into the coffin. To prove one's Tao and become an emperor in the coffin is too far-fetched. I see. What a pity. This person's talent can be said to be unprecedented. If he can become an emperor, he will definitely achieve great things in the future. Yes. The emperors communicated for a while before dispersing. The vast universe returned to its cold and dead silence. Meanwhile, in a palace in the depths of the universe, an old man in a white robe suddenly opened his eyes. His gaze pierced through the dark universe, through the clouds, and landed on the emperor's road. In this era, there's someone who can prove his Tao through strength, and under such special circumstances too. I'm afraid this person has an unparalleled luck. Perhaps this person will be the key to breaking out of this predicament in the future. Chu Kuangren. I need to pay attention to this person. In another place, on top of a huge floating meteorite, a middle-aged man in a purple-gold robe was also looking at the firmament star from afar. An obscure light flashed across his eyes as he murmured, "The Emperor Burial Coffin, Chaos. Could this be your masterpiece?" At this moment, a blood-red mist streaked across the void from thousands of kilometers away. heading towards the firmament star at high speed. The middle-aged man snorted and flicked his finger, unleashing a terrifying golden emperor's chi that landed on the blood-red mist in the blink of an eye. With a loud bang, the blood-red mist let out a blood-curdling screech before exploding on the spot. It was like a firework that lit up in the cold universe. The majestic force directly swept across a radius of 10,000 miles, and meteorites exploded one after another. The gales of the universe swept across the middle-aged man's robe as he stared coldly into the distant universe. Vaguely, a blood-red ray of light could be seen flickering with an eerie intent. His movements are getting more and more frequent. How troublesome. Inside the Emperor's Road, an unexpected Emperor's Tao fluctuation attracted the attention of the 9 heavens, 3 realms, and even the outer realm. At this moment, there was another huge commotion inside the Emperor's Road. The Emperor's Mountain that was shrouded in golden mist seemed to be affected by the sudden Emperor's Tao fluctuation as the mist gradually dispersed. The majestic Emperor's Mountain had appeared in advance. In an instant, countless ancient orthodoxies were shaken. Each sky prides looked at the Emperor's Mountain excitedly. They knew that the opportunity to become an emperor had arrived. Chapter 643. Inside the Path of Emperors, the Mountain of Emperors had appeared. Many orthodoxies were shocked. Rays of light flashed across the sky and headed towards the Mountain of Emperors. The group of rulers arrived at the Mountain of Emperors. They stared at the peak of the Mountain of Emperors with fiery eyes. There were 9 golden platforms engraved with Tao patterns. Their surroundings were filled with Tao melodies and lights that dazzled everyone. That was the throne. 9 thrones. In other words, 9 emperors were born this time. This is unbelievable. This is the first time in history that the Mountain of Emperors produced 9 thrones at once. This is too powerful. Everyone says that this era of great battles is the turning point of extreme decline to extreme prosperity. This is right. 9 thrones, this is unprecedented. Some rulers could no longer hold it in. Some of them dashed towards the peak of the Mountain of Emperors. However, they were bounced back by an invisible force. Some of them used too much force and directly fell to the ground in a sorry state. Stop fooling around. The thrones of this generation are for the heavens' favorites. It's not our turn yet. A ruler said. The rest of the rulers looked at the thrones and looked away unwillingly. They were ready for the heavens' favorites to take the stage. Other than the rulers, the group of heavens' favorites arrived at the Mountain of Emperors as well. Qin Tianchen by Hongyu Sha Wuxia Wangquan Zi Wuji, and other heavens' favorites gathered at the Mountain of Emperors. They stared at the thrones with fiery eyes. That's the throne. Climb it, and you will become a heaven's favorite. 9, there are 9 thrones. Doesn't that mean I have a high chance of becoming one? Let's go. Some heaven's favorites could no longer hold it in and dashed towards the Mountain of Emperors. However, the moment they arrived at the boundary of the Mountain of Emperors, an enormous pressure pressed them down onto the ground. Damn, such a terrifying emperor's pressure. Those with insufficient cultivation can't even stand straight. As expected, it's not easy to climb to the top. Qin Tianchen glanced at the heavens' favorites and snickered. Even if the throne is empty, it will not be taken by the weak. Then, he took a step forward and walked towards the peak of the Mountain of Emperors. He walked like he was taking a stroll in the park. Some prodigies couldn't help but click their tongues in wonder. As expected of the world's #1 heaven's pride. He is indeed powerful. Others can't even move, but he can actually stroll around so casually. The top sky pride in the world? Shouldn't that be Chu Kuangren? What Chu Kuangren? That person is already dead. It's all in the past now. The current #1 cultivator is Qin Tianchen. The sky pride pouted and said in disdain. But at this moment, a white light suddenly whizzed out and hit his body, sending him flying and falling flat on his face. Not far away, a silhouette clad in silver armor slowly walked over, radiating a holy and radiant aura as well as a cold intent. It's her, Lan Yu. Everyone couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. It was the former saint of the light, Lan Yu. Apart from her, Nangong Huang, Murong Xian, and Shang Qingxue had also come out of their closed-door training. And now everyone's body was surging with an extremely terrifying pressure. That was the Emperor's Qi. These people had all condensed the monarch Qi. Especially Lan Yu, who was at the forefront, The terrifying emperor's qi that emanated from her was not inferior to some of the veteran emperors. They've become so much stronger. Bai Hongyu and the others were shocked. Watch your mouth. Lan Yu glanced at the sky pride that she had sent flying and said coldly. That sky pride instantly shuddered, but he still bit the bullet and said, I'm not wrong. What right do you have to hit me? Yeah, she's not wrong. A playful voice was heard. The forbidden sky pride, Wuxia, walked up and glanced at Lan Yu and the others. He said, Chu Kuangren is dead and we've seen it with our own eyes. Are we not allowed to say it? Before we ascend the Emperor Mountain, I don't mind tearing your mouth apart. A white scepter suddenly appeared in Lan Yu's hand. It was an emperor weapon. When the emperor's qi entered the emperor weapon, a majestic aura immediately erupted, forcing Wuxia to take a few steps back. After Wuxia steadied himself, he looked at his opponent with fear in his eyes. Now that Chu Kuangren is no longer here, do you think the few of you can do anything? Unpardonable exuded his emperor's qi too. He had obtained a fortuitous encounter in the core area of the desolate forbidden ground, and he had also formed the monarch qi. His strength was not much weaker than a martial monarch. Give it a try. Without hesitation, Lan Yu raised her hand and shot out a white divine flame. The might of the divine flame locked onto Sha without mercy. Wuxia raised his hand and punched out, but he was sent flying. Divine flames burned on his fist, and a large area was burned. Such power. Unpardonable became even more fearful of Lan Yu. I'd like to see how you guys fare in Emperor Mountain. Chu Kuangren has offended quite a lot of people. After Wuxia finished speaking, he did not continue to fight with Lan Yu. He turned around and walked towards the top of Mount Emperor. The most important thing now was to ascend the mountain and become a martial monarch. Even though there were 9 emperor positions, there were so many geniuses that came to Mount Emperors. Even the forbidden geniuses had to fight for them. The rest of the prodigies also started climbing. Let's go. Lan Yu was about to leave with Nangong Huang and the other two. Lan Yu, Nangong Huang. At that moment, a surprised voice came from behind them. They saw 2 beautiful figures walking towards them. Juni Fian. Nangong Huang was a little surprised. The 2 ladies were the Black Heaven Sect's Taoists, Jun Yi and Jean Fian. I finally found you guys. The 2 ladies were very happy to see Lan Yu and the others. Ha everyone, how have you been? Another 2 figures arrived together. They were the Black Heaven Sect's Taoists, Shuahan and Qin Wushuang. You guys are here too. Yes, how could we not come when the Emperor Mountain has appeared? Lan Yu glanced at them and a smile appeared on her cold face. Looks like you guys have your own fortuitous encounters. She could tell that their auras were much stronger than before they entered the Emperor's path. The difference was like heaven and earth. Lan Yu, the outside world is saying that the sect leader. Juni asked hesitantly. The outside world is saying that Master is dead, Lan Yu said calmly. She then looked at the crowd and chuckled. Do you guys believe it? The sect leader is dead. What a joke. I don't believe it. The sect leader brings disaster wherever he goes. Anyone can die, but I don't believe he's dead. The outside world is too unbelievable. I think the sect leader will come out after lying in that broken coffin for a few days. The few of them joked. To them, Chu Kuangren was like a religion. Chu Kuangren would die? Stop joking. Anyone in this world could die, but not Chu Kuangren. Let's go. Let's ascend the Emperor Mountain. Lan Yu turned around and looked at the peak of the Emperor Mountain with determination. All the sky prides began to ascend the Emperor Mountain. This was the last hurdle on the Emperor's path. On the Emperor Mountain, dangers were accompanied by opportunities of fortune. All the sky prides had their own unique abilities. Inside the Emperor's path, all the orthodoxies and cultivators had their eyes on the Emperor Mountain to witness the greatest ascent in history. At the peak of the Emperor Mountain, the 9 Emperor thrones shone brightly with Taoist patterns, waiting for the sky prides to ascend. Chapter 644. In the barren forbidden area, beneath the black soil, inside the Emperor's coffin. After Chu Kuangren had broken through that barrier, his understanding of his Tao of invincibility had reached a whole new level. It was the Emperor's Tao. After cultivating for so long, he had finally reached the Emperor's Tao. Is this what it feels like to become an emperor? It's extraordinary indeed. Chu Kuangren took a step forward. An incredibly dense Emperor's Tao fluctuation erupted, and the terrifying energy caused the surrounding chaotic mist to tumble. 24 surges of Emperor's Qi erupted and coordinated with the Emperor's Tao. Like a hurricane, countless evil spirits and Rakshasas were killed wherever they went. The door to the mansion of the dead could not withstand such a vast amount of energy. Cracks began to form all over the door. With a loud bang, the door to the mansion of the dead shattered. Ah! The underworld god's consciousness clone let out a cry of agony when its divine ability was broken. The giant human face immediately dissipated. Tisk, looks like he'll have to recuperate for a while, the Chaos Taoist master said with a smile. Although the underworld god's consciousness clone was one with the emperor burying coffin, and such an attack would not kill it, the backlash from its divine ability breaking meant that the consciousness clone would not be able to appear for some time. Your Tao is at least a perfect Tao. The Chaos Taoist master looked at Chu Kuangren and said in amazement. A perfect Tao? That's right. Everyone has their own Tao. However, between Taos there's a difference in realms and quality. I'm all ears. Chu Kuangren said solemnly, looking like a good student. The Chaos Taoist master enjoyed it very much. Although he was just a soul, he still pretended to clear his throat. I've already told you about the different realms. The grades of the Emperor Tao are divided into ordinary, flawed, flawless, perfect, and ultimate. These 5 grades are all different in terms of power. Then what grade is your Tao? My Tao is perfect. The Chaos Taoist master looked proud. Since ancient times, not many have possessed a perfect Tao. How do I improve the grade of my Tao? It's very difficult. An emperor's Tao is closely related to their accumulations and comprehensions before advancing to martial emperor. Once they advance to martial emperor, the quality of their Tao will be determined. It's not like cultivation realms that can be raised. Without a great fortuitous encounter, the quality of their Tao will be very difficult to change. I understand. Then who has the ultimate Tao? Yes, apart from the human clan, there are very few ancient gods or primordial creatures who possess the ultimate Tao. However, as far as I know, there is only one human who possesses the ultimate Tao. The Chaos Tao master could not help but reveal a hint of admiration in his eyes. Who? Chu Kuangren was a little surprised. What kind of person could make the Chaos Tao master revere him? The instigator of the war of defying the gods, the leader who led us in sealing the gods, we revere him as King Song. Human King. Song. Song, is he still there? The Chaos Tao master shook his head and said sadly, during the war against the gods, he fought with the strongest divine master among the gods. In the end, both of them died in the immemorial Kunlun abyss. Not even their corpses were found. That's such a pity. Chu Kuangren sighed. It's such a pity that I'm not fated to meet such a person. Alright, now that you've completed your Emperor's Tao, it's time to think of a way to achieve Emperor Essence, the Chaos Tao Master said. Chu Kuangren nodded. To become an emperor, possessing the Emperor's Tao alone was not enough. One must also build an emperor's foundation level and an emperor's body. To achieve that, one would need a massive amount of resources. At the Emperor Mountain, with the support of the Emperor's throne, one could skip that process and use the Emperor's throne's energy to build an emperor's foundation level. That was also one of the reasons why countless people flocked to the Emperor Mountain. With the Emperor's throne, they did not need to look for resources themselves to build an emperor's foundation level because the Emperor Mountain had already prepared everything for them. However, Chu Kuangren was not at the Emperor Mountain now. Even if he had proven his Tao through strength, he would still need to spend a massive amount of resources to build an emperor's foundation level. If it were any other time, I might be troubled by this, but now that I'm in the emperor burial coffin, there's no need for that. Isn't this endless chaotic qi just like a massive amount of resources? Chu Kuangren licked his lips. Remember, the emperor's foundation level is also divided into different grades. Do your best to build the best emperor's foundation level. This matter concerns your future growth, so don't be careless, the Chaos Taoist Lord said solemnly. Understood. Chu Kuangren sat down with his legs crossed and fully activated the universal cauldron physique. The chaotic qi in the surroundings instantly flowed towards Chu Kuangren like 100 rivers flowing into the sea. He refined it and channeled it into his spiritual mound. The Emperor's qi in his spiritual mound continued to increase as the 7 supreme foundation levels radiated with a divine brilliance. There was a mysterious resonance between them, and they were getting closer to each other. The moment these supreme foundation levels collided, a terrifying shockwave erupted. It was like the Big Bang. The 7 supreme foundation levels shattered and formed a giant whirlpool. The fragments of the supreme foundation levels were sucked into the whirlpool. Vaguely, a golden pearl could be seen within the whirlpool. That was the first step in building the Emperor's foundation level. Break all the foundation levels and merge them together to form Emperor's essence. The stronger the foundation level, the higher the quality of the Emperor's essence that was formed. At the peak of Mount Emperor, a figure suddenly stepped into the place. That person was dressed in a black robe and had an imposing appearance. It was the Qin clan's taboo Qin Tianjin. Looking at the Emperor's throne in front of him, Qin Tianjin took a deep breath and a fiery look appeared in his eyes. Sure enough, I've ascended to the Emperor's throne in this life. With the foundation from my past life, I'll be even more powerful after becoming an emperor in this life. An emperor who has lived a second life is no ordinary emperor, Qin Tianjin said. Then, his figure flashed and turned into a stream of light that landed on the Emperor's throne. In an instant, the entire Mount Emperor trembled. A golden pillar of light shot into the sky and pierced through the clouds. Golden auspicious clouds surged as Taoist rhymes echoed. Outside of Mount Emperor, all the emperors were shocked. Someone has ascended to the top and become an emperor. It's the Qin clan's taboo. Haha, as expected of our Qin clan's taboo. The reincarnation of a great emperor is indeed able to take the lead. The Qin clan's emperor laughed heartily. The rest of the emperors looked at the other sky prides on Mount Emperor with a hint of anxiety in their eyes while cheering them on in their hearts. The first emperor's throne had been taken. Hurry up! Hurry up! As Qin Tianjin ascended to the emperor's throne, the rest of the taboo sky prides also ascended to the top after going through countless trials and opportunities. The emperor's throne is mine. The second to reach the top was Wang Quan from the Wang clan. He turned into a stream of light and quickly ascended to the emperor's throne. Then, the second golden pillar of light shot into the sky from Mount Emperor. The third was Lan Yu. Behind her, there was no longer anyone from the Black Heaven sect. Climbing Mount Emperor was not an easy task. She could not bring everyone up alone, so she had to go first. She also ascended to the emperor's throne. In an instant, countless emperor's mysteries surged into her heart, and the third golden pillar of light exploded. Then Zhou Yan from the 9-headed snakelet tribe, Zi Wuji from the land of runes, Sha Wuxia from the unforgiven tribe, Lung Ningyu from the 7 emotions sect, and Bai Hongyu from the Bai clan took the other 5 emperors' thrones. Out of the 9 emperors' thrones, only one was left. All the emperors stared at the last emperor's throne and breathed heavily. Some of the ancient orthodoxies that had yet to ascend to the top were as anxious as ants on a hot pan. Look, someone's ascending. That person is. Chapter 645. The last emperor's throne held the hearts of countless emperors. A young man riddled with wounds stepped onto the peak of the mountain with a sharp sword qi emanating from his body. It was Murongxian. This emperor's throne is mine. Murongxian looked at the last emperor's throne with a serious expression. A lady's figure appeared in his mind. It was Yang Xiyun. She was the love of his life after he came to the emperor's path. He had promised her that he would look for her after he became an emperor. Whoosh! Murongxian's figure flashed and landed on the emperor's throne. The 9th golden light pillar shot into the sky. How can it be him? Chu Kuangren's people. D***m in it. Lan Yu and Murongxian are both Chu Kuangren's people. And Lung Ningyu too. F***ck, Chu Kuangren is dead, but there are still 3 people close to him who became emperors. Are you kidding me? How can Murongxian become an emperor? The remaining sky prides looked at the 9 golden light pillars that shot into the sky and could not help but feel extremely dissatisfied. Some of the forbidden sky prides, in particular, were extremely resentful. They had failed. They had failed in their fight for the emperor's throne. The 9 emperors' thrones had been divided among the crowd. The 9 golden light pillars shot into the sky and began to resonate with the heavenly Tao. Under such a powerful fluctuation, the heavenly Tao that was originally incomplete for some reason began to be perfected. The heavenly Tao was restored. On one of the emperor's thrones, Qin Tianchen sat with his legs crossed as his understanding of the emperor's Tao increased. At the same time, the foundation within his body was also broken and began to merge. During this process, the emperor's thrones were constantly transferring energy to him. That energy was converted into emperor's qi, and gradually condensed into emperor's qi. I need at least 9 surges of emperor's qi to condense emperor's qi. The more surges of emperor's qi, the higher the quality of the condensed emperor's qi. The 5 grades of emperor's qi are low grade, mid grade, top grade, supreme grade, and ultimate grade. In my previous life I could only condense low grade emperor's qi, but in this life I can at least condense mid grade emperor's qi. My achievements in the emperor's path will far surpass my previous life, Qin Tianchen thought to himself. He began to absorb the energy from the emperor's thrones, and the amount of emperor's qi in his body continued to increase. 3 surges, 4 surges, 5 surges, 6 surges. 60, 70, 80, 90. In the coffin of the emperor, Chu Kuangren was frantically absorbing the chaotic qi around him, converting it into the energy needed to condense the emperor's essence. The amount of emperor qi was also increasing rapidly. This process made him feel so good that he was about to fly. For other cultivators, it would take a lot of effort and resources to condense a stream of monarch qi. However, with the help of the endless chaos qi and the universal cauldron physique, the amount of monarch qi he had was increasing at an unbelievable speed. Beside him, the Chaos Tao Lord clicked his tongue in wonder as well. To think that this fellow's speed of refining chaos qi would be so fast. Just what sort of physique is that? I feel that it's much stronger than my chaos body. However, will his body be able to withstand so much chaotic qi? Don't accidentally blow yourself up. The other side, Di Shan, Qin Tianchen and the others were also condensing Emperor Yuan. Among them, the most outstanding one was Qin Tianchen. As the reincarnation of a great emperor, he was very familiar with the process. Coupled with the accumulation of 2 lifetimes, his emperor qi was improving at an extremely fast rate. 99 streams of emperor qi. 99 streams of emperor qi is the threshold of a mid-tier emperor essence. However, I think I can still continue to improve. I might even have the chance to break through to a top-tier emperor essence. Qin Tianchen was ecstatic. He had obtained too many opportunities of fortune during his reincarnation. Emperors who could condense top-tier emperor essences were rare. In the same cultivation realm, a top-tier emperor essence could give an emperor a huge advantage. The 100 stream of emperor qi condense. Qin Tianchen let out a low roar as his eyes lit up like never before. He was already looking forward to condensing a top-tier emperor essence. That's the 1000th stream of emperor qi. This guy is still far from reaching his limit. Could it be that he has a high chance of condensing a top-tier emperor essence? The Chaos Tao Lord looked at Chu Kuangren in shock. Top-tier emperor essences were similar to the perfect Tao. They were extremely rare among the emperors, and each of them was unparalleled. For example, the Chaos Tao Lord had a top-tier emperor essence. If this guy doesn't die along the way, he has a high chance of becoming a Tao Lord in the future. No, he might even surpass me. Surpass a Tao Lord and become an immortal that transcends the heavenly Tao. The Chaos Tao Lord's eyes lit up. Since ancient times, countless cultivators had pursued immortality, but no one had ever touched the threshold of immortality. However, he now saw a possibility in Chu Kuangren. If the human emperor was still around, he might have become an immortal by now, the Chaos Tao Lord lamented. Then he looked at Chu Kuangren, and the more he looked at him, the weirder his expression became. Speaking of which, this guy's appearance is different from the human emperor, but his unique aura is very similar. He shook his head and stopped thinking about it. Maybe I'm overthinking. Time passed by, and Chu Kuangren did not know how long it had been since he refined the chaotic qi and condensed the emperor's essence. Maybe it was a month, or maybe it was a year. However, the number of emperor's essences in his body had reached an astonishing 9,990 streams, which meant he had reached the threshold of condensing a top-tier emperor essence. It's time to condense a top-tier emperor essence, the Chaos Tao Lord murmured. However, he was surprised to find that Chu Kuangren did not stop refining the chaotic qi and condensing the emperor's essence. Instead, he continued to refine the chaotic qi and condense the emperor's essence. Is this guy trying to break through to the ultimate emperor's essence? He had a strange look on his face. The ultimate emperor's essence was the strongest grade of emperor's essence, but it had always existed in theory. Since ancient times, no one had managed to condense it. Therefore, the Chaos Tao Lord did not think Chu Kuangren could succeed. Besides, to condense such an emperor's essence, one's physical body would have to withstand a lot of pressure. I'm afraid he won't be able to withstand it. Time passed. At Mount Emperor, hundreds of millions of kilometers away, 9 pillars of light shot into the sky, shaking the heavens. It had been a year since Qin Tianchen and the others ascended to the emperor's realm. During this year their Taoist Tao foundation and physical bodies had undergone tremendous changes, and they were constantly approaching the emperor realm. At that moment, 2 figures suddenly stepped out of the golden light pillars. They were Bai Hongyu and Wang Quan. Their bodies emanated an endless emperor's aura that shook the entire emperor's road. They had become emperors. The 2 of them looked at each other and saw the joy in each other's eyes. After cultivating for so long, I've finally become an emperor. Haha, from now on where can't we go? The 2 of them looked at the emperor's thrones behind them. The others were still in the process of becoming emperors. However, when they saw Qin Tianchen, their expressions changed slightly, and a serious look appeared in their eyes. The amount of emperor's essence in his body has reached more than 900. He's trying to condense a top-tier emperor's essence, Wang Quan said in shock. Through their emperor's enlightenment, they had learned about some things about the emperor's realm and knew that there were different grades of emperor's essences. The emperor's essences that they condensed were only low tier. However, Qin Tianchen was trying to condense a top-tier emperor's essence. Chapter 646. On Emperor Mountain, Bai Hongyu and Wang Quan were the first to become emperors. However, it did not mean that the first to become an emperor was the strongest. Take Qin Tianchen for example. Although he had yet to become an emperor, he was still accumulating emperor's essence and was planning to condense a top-tier emperor essence in one go. 997th. 998th. Qin Tianchen's body was already covered in wounds. His physical body had reached its limit, but he gritted his teeth and did not give up. He used all his strength to condense the 999th emperor's essence. I did it. Qin Tianchen was overjoyed. Then, the 999th emperor's essence gathered and mixed with his spiritual mound to form a top-tier emperor essence. 56,800 monarch qi, 56,900 monarch qi, 57,000 monarch qi, 57,000 monarch qi, 57,000 monarch qi, 60,000. Inside the emperor-burying coffin, Chu Kuangren had already condensed 60,000 emperor's essences. Moreover, it was still increasing. The Chaos Taoist Lord was shocked. The emperor's essence that was condensed from such a large amount of emperor's essence must be of a higher quality than his. Crack, crack. At that point, Chu Kuangren's body could no longer withstand such a large amount of emperor's essence. It began to crack and bloody wounds appeared on his body. This is bad. If this goes on, this guy's body won't be able to take it. The Chaos Taoist Lord was worried. However, something unexpected happened. At the same time that Chu Kuangren's body was being destroyed, an incredibly mysterious force was continuously repairing his body. What kind of ability is this? The Chaos Taoist Lord was shocked. This guy's weird abilities really came one after another. Immortal body activated. Chu Kuangren continued to refine the chaotic qi without any hesitation. Gradually, the vast and boundless chaotic qi in the surroundings began to become extremely thin. The Chaos Taoist Lord was speechless. This guy is going to absorb all the chaotic qi in the emperor-burying coffin. He looked at Chu Kuangren with a gleam in his eyes. The amount of emperor's essence in Chu Kuangren's body had reached 70,000, and there was still no end in sight. Obviously, he could still condense more. If he's given enough resources, he might be able to form the first ultimate emperor's essence in the history of the human race. This is of great significance to our human race. At the thought of this, a look of determination flashed across the Chaos Dao Master's eyes. His soul form returned to his physical body. Afterwards, his body began to release large amounts of chaotic qi, and the thin chaotic qi in the surroundings became dense once again. Little fellow, I'll use my cultivation base to help you condense the ultimate Emperor Yuan. With the influx of large amounts of chaotic qi, Chu Kuangren's speed of condensing the Emperor's essence became faster and faster. 70,000, 80,000, 90,000, 99,999. Finally 100,000. The moment the 100,000 surges of Emperor's essence converged, Chu Kuangren's body emitted an unprecedentedly terrifying fluctuation. Divine light circulated in his body, and Tao patterns intertwined. The 100,000 the arch energy surging out gradually condensed into a dazzling golden the arch energy. In that instant the 9 heavens, hell, the demon realm, the firmament, and even the outer realms all sensed the fluctuations of the ultimate the arch essence. Countless ancient almighties opened their eyes. The emperors in the cosmos all felt like their scalps were about to explode. F***CKME, what kind of power is this? It's the Emperor's essence. Someone has condensed the Emperor's essence, but why is its fluctuation so terrifying? Is it the Emperor from Mount Emperor? No. Although we've condensed 9 Emperor thrones this time, none of them could allow someone to condense such Emperor's essence. Who could it be? This kind of Emperor's essence has never been seen before in history. Could it be some kind of ancient living being? Above the 9 heavens, all the great ones in the outer realms and the firmament were shocked. In the Emperor's road, inside the burying Emperor's coffin, Chu Kuangren slowly got up, and the ultimate Emperor's essence within his body emitted surges of unimaginably pure Emperor's essence. It cleansed his bones, meridians, every inch of his flesh, and even every cell. He felt that his body was constantly transforming. From a sage's body to a great emperor's body, Chu Kuangren gently waved his fist. Terrifying energy poured out as he gently waved his fist, causing the entire burying emperor's coffin to shake. How powerful! Chu Kuangren was amazed. Then he sensed the state of his body. The supreme foundation in his spiritual mound had completely disappeared, and in its place was a shiny golden emperor's essence. The emperor's essence was oval in shape, and there were countless mysterious Taoist patterns on it. The emperor's essence continued to emit emperor's essence, transforming his entire spiritual mound and physical body. Even the Bodhi spirit sitting on the golden lotus platform beside the emperor's essence was affected, and its soul was slightly strengthened. Now I feel like I can crush thousands of me with just a finger. Is this the power of an emperor? Chu Kuangren exclaimed. You're not an ordinary emperor. At that moment the Chaos Taoist Master's soul appeared again. However, this time, his soul looked a little weak, but his eyes were unprecedentedly bright. He stared at Chu Kuangren and exclaimed, You're the first emperor to possess the ultimate emperor's essence in the human race's history. The first in the human race's history? Not even the human king. The human king has the ultimate Tao, but unfortunately, even he could not condense the ultimate emperor's essence, the Chaos Taoist Master said. I see. Why has the surroundings changed? Chu Kuangren suddenly realized that the vast sea of chaotic qi around him had disappeared, leaving only a few strands. How dare you say that? The Chaos Taoist Master rolled his eyes. In order to help you condense the ultimate emperor's essence, I voluntarily used up all of my cultivation base and converted it into chaotic qi for you to absorb. How powerful was the Chaos Taoist Master? As an ancient elder and one of the strongest cultivators in the human tribe, his cultivation base was unparalleled. However, even he had to give up his cultivation base to help Chu Kuangren condense the ultimate emperor origin level. One could see how difficult it was to condense the ultimate emperor's essence. Thank you, Senior. Chu Kuangren straightened his face and immediately bowed. Then he raised his hand and unleashed a palm attack towards the 4 blood-colored light pillars that pierced through the Chaos Taoist Master's limbs, shattering them. Senior, I'll get you out of here now. It's no use. Even if you're an emperor now, this emperor-bearing coffin is still the underworld god's natal divine weapon. He used this coffin to seal me. You can break the blood spiritual energy that's corroding my soul, but you can't get me out of here. the Chaos Taoist master said helplessly. Divine weapons were weapons used by the deities, and the natal divine weapon was the most important weapon that was closely related to the deities. Chu Kuangren tried to move the Chaos Taoist master, but no matter how hard he tried, he could not move the Chaos Taoist master at all. It was as if his physical body was connected to the emperor burying coffin. What should I do then? Chu Kuangren frowned. Don't worry, I won't die anytime soon. Now that you're an emperor, you should leave this place and do what you need to do. Senior, is there anything I can help you with? Chu Kuangren asked. He had obtained such a great opportunity of fortune after entering the emperor burying coffin. The Chaos Taoist master even used his entire cultivation base to help him condense the ultimate emperor's essence. Chu Kuangren would feel bad if he did not do something for the Chaos Taoist master. Chapter 647. What do you need to do? Of course, I want you to become stronger as soon as possible so that you can save me. Chaos Tao Lord rolled his eyes and said. After that, he explained a few things to Chu Kuangren before he took out a painting and an ancient book. On the painting, there was even a woman in white with peerless beauty. Little fellow, this woman is my disciple, and this ancient book contains my lifetime of comprehension. If you are able to meet her, I hope that you can pass this ancient book to me on my behalf. Although I don't know if she has any use for it, of course, if you want to take a look, I have no objections. Now that several eras had passed, he did not know what level his disciple's cultivation had reached. Perhaps he no longer had any use for this manual. Since Chu Kuangren had just ascended to the emperor realm, he might still be of some use. This white-robed woman looks a little familiar. The more Chu Kuangren looked at the lady in the painting, the more familiar he felt she was. Suddenly, his pupils shrank. Holy shit! Isn't this the headless empress? Her head was still in his interspatial ring. He was actually the disciple of the Chaos Tao Lord? Gulp. Chu Kuangren gulped and said, Senior, there's something I need to tell you first. What is it? Chu Kuangren told him about the headless empress and then took out that woman's head. When he saw the woman's head, the Chaos Tao Master's spirit body began to fluctuate violently and emitted an extremely strong killing intent. Luo River. Why is this happening? What exactly happened? Why has the Luo River become like this? The Tao heart of the Chaos Tao Master fluctuated violently. Luo Shui, his disciple, could be said to be the person closest to him, and also the only person he was worried about. But now, her head had been separated from her body for so many years. He didn't dare to believe it. Just what had happened to him? Something's not right. Why is the aura of this Luo River so weak? Given her heavenly venerable realm cultivation, her aura shouldn't be this weak even if she only has a head, the Chaos Tao Master said with a frown. His current thoughts were like a paste. It was too messy. What happened after the rebel god war? Young fella, I'm counting on you. The Chaos Taoist Lord could only place all his hopes on Chu Kuangren, hoping that he could help him investigate the matter. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. Now that he had become a martial emperor, these were all things that he had to interact with. Then Senior, I'll take my leave first. All right. Then Chu Kuangren activated the emperor's qi within his body. In an instant, a terrifyingly colorful Dharma power was formed. Its gigantic body seemed to be able to support the heavens and earth. There was a loud bang. The 10,000 Dharma forms held up the sky with their hands, as if they had touched some kind of barrier. It was the lid of the emperor burying coffin. Rise! Chu Kuangren let out a low growl, and the inner world of the burial emperor's coffin started to shake violently. Soon Chu Kuangren saw a pitch-black crack appear in front of him. In a flash he dashed towards the crack. Emperor's Road, desolate forbidden land, black soil. The huge black soil suddenly began to shake violently. Then a figure broke through the soil and leaped into the clouds. We're finally out. Chu Kuangren took a deep breath, his face filled with joy. After exiting the burying emperor's coffin, Chu Kuangren immediately sensed that something was not quite right. The surrounding spiritual qi was more abundant, and the great Taoist Tao had manifested. Like adding oil to a raging fire, it was incredibly prosperous and easier to gain insights. In the Emperor's Road, the faintly discernible restriction was also quickly disappearing. The emperors no longer had to be trapped in the ancestors' land. Chu Kuangren was slightly surprised. He looked towards the direction of the Emperor's mountain and squinted his eyes when he saw the golden light pillar that pierced through the sky. Someone has become an emperor. There was more than one aura. Interesting. It seems that the Emperor's mountain has already opened. I wonder who has become an emperor. He smiled and glanced at the black soil. Then, his Emperor's thought surged out and covered the Emperor's road, locking onto the swordsman's location. Inside the swordsman's tribe, some swordsmen were cultivating. However, all of a sudden, the treasured swords in front of them were shrouded by a strange spatial fluctuation, and they all disappeared. What's going on? Where are my swords? What's going on? Oh no, the hidden sword pavilion. All the swords in the hidden sword pavilion, including the 2 emperor weapons, have suddenly disappeared. What? The entire swordsman's tribe fell into chaos. Everyone felt incomparably horrified. What kind of technique was it to make all the swords in the swordsman's tribe disappear in an instant? Could it be that I've seen a ghost? One of the swordsmen could not help but mumble. The barren forbidden area. Chu Kuangren stood in the air above the black soil. Behind him, many swords floated in the air, including a few emperor weapons. However, Chu Kuangren still felt that it was not enough, so he took out a few more emperor weapons from his yin and yang ring. Most of them were looted from the swordsman in the past. With so many emperor weapons and sage weapons casting the sealing sword formation, I refuse to believe that we can't suppress a divine weapon that's only controlled by your consciousness. Chu Kuangren snorted. In an instant, countless swords rained down like a torrential rain. As the swords pierced into the black soil, an incredibly powerful sealing force instantly erupted and shrouded the entire black soil. The sealing sword formation was formed, and the emperor burying coffin was firmly trapped in the black soil. Since then, unless the Lord of the Underworld broke through the seal and personally came to retrieve it, the emperor burying coffin would no longer be able to appear and harm the people. The emperor burying coffin can no longer absorb the resentment of living beings, so it can no longer harm your soul. Senior, once I reach a certain level, I'll definitely come and save you. Chu Kuangren thought to himself. Then, he looked in the direction of the Mount Emperor and smirked. Now let me see who has become an emperor. A ripple appeared in the void. Chu Kuangren disappeared from where he was. Meanwhile, inside the Mount Emperor, by Hongyu Wangquan, 9 Flames, Ziwuji, and the other forbidden sky prides became emperors one after another. Their majestic emperor's poise swept across the entire emperor's road. When the cultivators around Mount D saw this, they were extremely excited. They looked at the monarchs and almost knelt down to worship them. Is this the emperor's poise? It's so powerful. How many years has it been? Finally, an emperor has appeared in the emperor's road. This is just the beginning. There will be more emperors in the future. Boom! An even more terrifying emperor's poise erupted from the Mount Emperor. Qin Tianchen stood in the air with a proud look on his face. The emperor's poise that he exuded was several times more powerful than the others. Bai Hongyu Wangquan and the others narrowed their eyes. Qin Tianchen is the reincarnation of a great emperor. Now that he's ascended to the emperor realm, it's like he's living a second life. This kind of power is indeed powerful. Among us, he's still the strongest. The few new emperors looked at each other. They were quite wary of Qin Tianchen. Greetings, Emperor. One of the emperors stood out and said loudly. The other cultivators followed suit and congratulated him. Greetings, Emperor. Greetings, Emperor. Wave after wave of voices shot into the sky. Meanwhile, the 9 emperors stood proudly, enjoying the attention of the crowd and the supreme emperor's poise. Chapter 648. Greetings, Emperors. Greetings, Emperors. Countless cultivators around the Emperor Mountain bowed. The 9 emperors' auras shook the heavens. At that moment, Wuxia of the 9 emperors looked at Lan Yu and Murong Xian and said, I think we still have a score to settle. What do you mean? Lan Yu said indifferently. Chu Kuangren has offended so many people. Do you really think you can forget about it? He may be dead now, but do you really think you can get away with it since you're close to him? Are you looking for a battle between emperors? Lan Yu took out his white scepter and unleashed his emperor's aura. Hey, I really want to see how big of a gap there is between us since we're both emperors. Wuxia sneered. He then took a step forward and threw a punch at Lan Yu. Under the activation of the Emperor's Qi, the infallible tormented physique's aura skyrocketed. The violent ferocious Qi almost shattered the void. Lan Yu snorted and threw a punch as well. The white divine flame burned and collided with the ferocious Qi. As the two energies intertwined, a completely different Emperor's aura erupted. The entire Emperor Mountain shook a few times, and the energy that was released sent countless cultivators flying. The Emperor's aura is indeed extraordinary. Back then, the Emperor burial coffin could not even cause a scratch on the Emperor Mountain when it controlled a large number of Emperor realm cultivators. Now it was shaken by a single attack from an Emperor. This is too terrifying. This power is a little scary. After that attack, Lan Yu and Sha Wuxia each took a step back. Ferocious Qi circulated around Sha Wuxia's body, as he pushed the infallible tormented physique to its limit. The Emperor's Qi intertwined as he activated the divine ferocious avatar. This avatar was tens of thousands of feet tall, and its body was covered in Taoist patterns. As the Emperor's aura emanated from it, countless cultivators were almost crushed to the ground. Even an Emperor realm cultivator could not withstand it. Quick retreat now. Retreat 10,000 miles away from the Emperor Mountain. Don't let it affect you. An Emperor's battle is happening right after becoming an Emperor. This is too much. On the Emperor Mountain, Sha Wuxia activated the divine ferocious avatar. The Taoist patterns on the avatar intertwined and covered almost half of the sky. Dazzling divine fire of light burst forth from Lan Yu's body. There were also Tao patterns swirling within the flames as the boundless might of light clashed with the murderous aura. The two monarchs' auras were evenly matched. Only monarchs of the same realm could stand beside them. As for others, it was difficult for them to even get close. Everyone, I'm sure none of you have forgotten what Chu Kuangren has done to us. Don't you want to vent your anger? Sha Wuxia sneered at the other new emperors. His gaze was especially on Qin Tianqian. Qin Tianqian was now an emperor who had lived his second life. With the accumulation of his 2 lives, the combat strength that he could unleash was extremely strong and far exceeded any of the emperors present. If he was willing to make a move, defeating Lan Yu was almost guaranteed. Chu Kuangren is dead, but it's not a bad idea to settle the score with the people around him. 9 Flames took a step forward and chuckled. The matter of Chu Kuangren killing my by family's divine honorable physique cannot be forgotten so easily. Lan Yu, let me have a taste of your skills. Bai Hongyu took a step forward and said with a long saber in her hand. That saber was an emperor weapon. It was an opportunity of fortune that she had obtained after coming to Mount Emperor. It was not any weaker than the Scarlet Dragon Phoenix saber that Chu Kuangren had taken away previously. Chu Kuangren once killed my cousin Wang Tianting. You must give my Wang family an explanation for this. Wang Quan said indifferently. I don't have such a deep grudge against Chu Kuangren, so I won't get involved. Zi Wuji took a few steps back. What about you, Qin Tianqian? Sha Wuxia looked at Qin Tianqian and asked. Humph, I don't care to deal with a woman, Qin Tianqian said. To him, he was no longer on the same level as these new emperors. He was much stronger than these new emperors, so it would be too shameful for him to fight Lan Yu with them. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you fight or not. Sha Wuxia shrugged. Now he, Bai Hongyu, Wang Quan, and 9 Flames were going against Lan Yu and Murongxian. For against 2 it was almost certain that they would win. If you want to fight, bring it on. Lan Yu held the scepter in her hand and said coldly. I would also like to spar with my fellow Taoists to prove my Tao. At that moment, Lung Ningyu said to Sha Wuxia and the others. Her gaze was indifferent and emotionless. Her Tao of Oblivion seemed to have reached a higher level of mastery. For against 3 we still have a chance of winning. Sha Wuxia said no more. The divine ferocious avatar behind him attacked Lan Yu, and the terrifying energy almost shattered the void. Lan Yu did not back down, and the white divine flame immediately erupted. The ferocious qi and light energy intertwined, and the Taoist patterns collided. Both Lan Yu and Sha Wuxia were forced to retreat. A sword qi and a saber ray pierced through the void. The sword qi and saber ray were both imbued with a majestic emperor's poise. Murongxian and Bai Hongyu were fighting each other, while Lung Ningyu was facing off against Wang Quan. The Tao of Oblivion was facing off against the Tao of 5 elements. He. Then don't blame me for bullying you with numbers. Zhou Yan laughed and charged towards Lan Yu. His fire and water Taoist patterns intertwined in the void and headed towards Lan Yu. He was an ancient wild beast with a powerful physique. Now that he had become an emperor, his combat strength had surpassed most emperors in the same realm. Wuxia and Zhou Yan. One was an infallible tormented physique, while the other was an ancient wild beast. If it was a one-on-one battle, Lan Yu would not be any weaker than either of them. However, now that both of them had teamed up, it would be difficult for Lan Yu to fight against them. The battle between the emperors shook the heavens and earth. Wave after wave of extremely dense emperor's aura continued to spread out, causing the entire Emperor Mountain to shake violently. Many cultivators were watching from afar. While they were trembling in fear of the terrifying emperor's aura, they could not help but sigh. This Chu Kuangren is really something. Even in death, he still won't let people rest in peace. Even the emperors are fighting over him. Yeah, but it looks like Lan Yu won't be able to gain the upper hand. Being surrounded by two emperors, she could lose at any time. Yeah, the situation is not looking good. In the crowd, Nangong Huang, Shang Qingxue, and the others could not help but feel anxious as they watched the battle on the Emperor Mountain. The emperor from the swordsman tribe glanced at Nangong Huang and the others and sneered. Lan Yu Murongxian's time has come to an end. Since the few of you are related to Chu Kuangren, it's time for you to die as well. The swordsman tribe emperor immediately attacked. Nangong Huang's expression darkened as he exchanged a blow with his opponent. Both of them were forced to retreat. When Shang Qingxue and the others realized what was going on, they immediately went on their guard. Besides the swordsman tribe emperor, the Wangs, the Bai, and the demonic tribe emperors also turned their attention to Nangong Huang and the others. Their eyes were filled with coldness. Everyone related to Chu Kuangren shall die today, lest he becomes a scourge in the future. That's right. Chu Kuangren is dead. His debt shall be repaid by all of you. If you want to blame someone, blame it on your sect leader. The emperors joined forces to seal off Nangong Huang and the others' escape route. Now that the heavenly Tao had been restored, the emperor's path's restrictions had disappeared. They were no longer bound by anything, and even if they were to face a sky pride, they could still attack. Once they were freed from their restraints, they chose to attack the people around Chu Kuangren, disregarding their pride to deal with a few juniors. One could only say that their hatred for Chu Kuangren was too great. Yo, this Emperor Mountain is quite lively. At that moment, an indifferent voice suddenly resounded throughout the entire Emperor Mountain. Chapter 649. Just as the battle of the emperors continued on Mount Emperors and the emperors were about to attack Nangong Huang and the others, an indifferent yet familiar voice was suddenly heard and resounded throughout Mount Emperors. A familiar figure suddenly walked out from the void. He was dressed in a white robe, had a slender body, and his hair was long like a waterfall. He had a pair of sharp eyebrows and a pair of bright eyes. He was extremely handsome and looked like a celestial being. Everyone was stunned when they saw that person. Amidst the dead silence, someone gulped as he looked at the newcomer and said with a trembling voice, Chu Kuangren. Those three words were like a boulder smashing into the calm surface of a lake, setting off a storm. Everyone looked at Chu Kuangren in shock. F***CKme, isn't he dead? Why is he alive all of a sudden? Wasn't he sucked into the burial emperor's coffin and buried in the black soil? How could it appear here? Can't even the burial emperor's coffin kill this guy? How is this possible? How did he get out? Chu Kuangren's enemies, such as the swordsmen and demonic emperors, stared at Chu Kuangren in disbelief. Are you a human or a ghost? A swordsman emperor said with a trembling voice. Chu Kuangren glanced at him. Boom! A mist of blood exploded. That emperor did not even have the chance to scream before he died on the spot. However, that was just the beginning. One after another, mists of blood continued to bloom. The emperors who were attacking Nangong Huang and the others were all killed by an undetectable force within a breath's time. Everyone could not help but shiver as they looked at Chu Kuangren with fear in their eyes. One by one they retreated, not daring to approach him. It was too terrifying. No one was surprised that Chu Kuangren could kill those emperors. However, the fact that he could kill them with such a strange and inexplicable method that no one could detect made them feel terrified. They did not even know how Chu Kuangren did it. Sect leader. I knew you're not dead, sect leader. Nangong Huang, Shang Qingxue, and the others were pleasantly surprised. On the Emperor Mountain by Hongyu, Qin Tianchen, and the others had also noticed Chu Kuangren's arrival. They all stopped what they were doing, shocked. They had witnessed Chu Kuangren being devoured by the imperial burial coffin with their own eyes. Yet now, Chu Kuangren was standing in front of them full of vigor. A smile blossomed on Lan Yu's face. Master. She was not the least bit surprised that Chu Kuangren was still alive. She was simply happy to be able to see him again. Lung Ningyu's heart skipped a beat. He's not dead, not dead. The love that she had suppressed to the bottom of her heart actually showed signs of surging out again, and her eyes had become a little blurry. My Tao of Wang Qing is broken again. Brother Chu, you really are my nemesis. Lung Ningyu rubbed her eyes and muttered. He's not dead. Qin Tianshan's eyes widened. Following this, his monarch's will gushed out and landed on the other party's body, trying to probe the other party's cultivation level. But with his current cultivation, he was actually unable to pry into it in the slightest. What level is he at right now? Qin Tianshan murmured. You're not dead? That's great. Nine Flames looked at Chu Kuangren and laughed out loud. His eyes were filled with excitement. I've always regretted not being able to defeat you. Now that you're still alive, this is great news. Now that I can defeat you with my own hands, my thoughts will be clear, and my Taoist core will be perfected. He's mine. Wang Quan snorted coldly. He stared at Chu Kuangren, wanting to defeat him too. No, he must be defeated by me. Chu Kuangren, it's a shame that you're one step too late. Otherwise, the Emperor Mountain's throne would have been yours. But now you'll forever be beneath us. Bai Hongyu sneered. There were 9 Emperor Mountain's thrones, but now all of them had been taken. To them, Chu Kuangren was not fated to be an emperor in this lifetime. If he did not become an emperor, how could he possibly be a match for them? They looked at Chu Kuangren excitedly, wishing that they could return the humiliation they had suffered to him 100-fold. You've become an emperor, huh? No wonder you have the guts to yell in front of me. In that case, let's fight together. Chu Kuangren chuckled. Fight together? Chu Kuangren, you think too highly of yourself. The current you, I can crush you with one finger. Sha Unpardonable said. The divine ferocious avatar behind him surged with ferocious chi, and was about to attack Chu Kuangren. However, at that moment, a golden torrent surged out and shattered Sha Unpardonable's divine ferocious avatar. The person who attacked was Qin Tianshan. His strength was extremely terrifying. Compared to Sha Unpardonable by Hongyu and the others, his strength was one level higher. With just one move, he had shattered Sha Unpardonable's divine ferocious avatar. Qin Tianshan, what's the meaning of this? Sha Unpardonable said with a gloomy expression, but his eyes were filled with fear. He did not expect his opponent to be so much stronger than him. Was this the power of a 2-generation emperor? Chu Kuangren can only be defeated by me, Qin Tianshan said indifferently. As he stepped forward, the aura on his body began to circulate, and waves of Emperor's aura spread out like a tidal wave. This Emperor's aura was much stronger than the other new emperors. It did not feel like a new emperor at all. Even some of the older emperors did not have such Emperor's aura. Flawless Tao, top-tier emperor essence. That's pretty good among the emperors. Chu Kuangren looked at Qin Tianshan with Taoist runes circulating deep within his eyes. Chu Kuangren, you shouldn't be here. If you hide, you'll definitely become an emperor in the future. When that time comes, you might still be able to suppress us. But now, you no longer have that chance. Qin Tianshan said as the emperor's aura on his body began to rise. Do you think you're worthy enough for me to hide? Chu Kuangren laughed in disdain as if he had just heard a joke. You're still as arrogant as ever. Oh well. Let me put an end to your legendary life today. As Qin Tianshan lifted his arm, an incredibly dense surge of Emperor's aura circulated between his fingers. He glared at Chu Kuangren and said, I'll kill you with one move. Boom. With a single punch, the void exploded. The fist energy shook the mountains, rivers, and earth. Wrapped in mysterious Taoist patterns, it turned into a golden torrent that swept towards Chu Kuangren. The power of that punch was too overwhelming. Almost no one thought that Chu Kuangren could withstand that attack. Even Morong Xian, Lung Ningyu and Lan Yu could not help but want to help him. However, Chu Kuangren made his move. He slowly lifted his arm and casually pushed it out. In an instant, Chu Kuangren's emperor's aura appeared. It was only the tip of the iceberg, but it was already like a raging hurricane that shook the heavens. Chu Kuangren's palm attack contained indescribably mysterious Taoist patterns, and it immediately shattered Qin Tianxin's golden torrent. Qin Tianxin's pupils dilated. He could not defend himself at all before his bones and tendons were shattered. He was sent flying and landed on the ground in a disheveled state. He looked extremely pathetic, and he no longer had the high-spirited look he had before. Chu Kuangren retracted his hand and stood with his hands behind his back. He looked at Qin Tianxin, who was lying on the ground, and said, "Why are you putting on an act in front of me?" Chapter 650. Silence. It was deathly silent. Outside the Emperor Mountain, the hundreds of millions of cultivators were dumbfounded. No one would have thought that Qin Tianxin, who had become an emperor and accumulated a top-tier emperor essence, would be so vulnerable before Chu Kuangren. A single move and he was defeated pathetically. It was a complete mess. Chu Kuangren has become an emperor. One of the cultivators gulped and said in disbelief. In an instant, the hundreds of millions of cultivators went into an uproar as they stared at Chu Kuangren in disbelief. Emperor. Chu Kuangren had become an emperor. How is this possible? All 9 of the Emperor Mountain's emperor positions have been taken away. How did he become an emperor? Yeah, this kind of thing is simply unheard of. Wait a minute, do you guys remember that there's another way to become an emperor other than the Emperor Mountain? The emperors seemed to have thought of something and their eyes narrowed. Meanwhile, Qin Tianxin, who was knocked to the ground by Chu Kuangren, looked up and said in disbelief, "Using strength to prove your Tao? You've used strength to prove your Tao? How is this possible? Using strength to prove one's Tao? How could someone use strength to prove one's Tao in this era? Besides, Chu Kuangren was locked in the emperor burial coffin. How could one use strength to prove one's Tao in a place like that? This was completely beyond Qin Tianxin's understanding. How dare you bully my people when I'm not around? You guys have really challenged my patience time and again. If that's the case, don't leave. Today is a joyous day for all of you to become emperors. Let's set the date of your death as well." Chu Kuangren said calmly and took a step forward. The majestic emperor's aura instantly locked onto Qin Tianxin and the others. "Let's attack together." Sha Unpardonable roared. His divine ferocious avatar erupted with ferocious qi and countless Taoist patterns intertwined before it launched a punch at Chu Kuangren. "Did you just say that you can crush me with a finger?" Chu Kuangren looked at Sha Unpardonable and slowly pointed a finger at the void. The terrifying power directly blasted a hole in the void. This casual finger actually pierced through the void. The Sky Fiend Dharma idol's fist shattered and its entire body exploded. The monarch aura's baleful aura dissipated, and Sha Wuxia himself let out a miserable howl. The monarch body that he had just condensed was continuously disintegrating under this finger. With a loud bang, Sha Wuxia's body exploded into dozens of pieces, and a large amount of sovereign blood gushed out, turning into a rain of blood that fell from the sky. An emperor had fallen. Emperors shed blood. Even the heavenly Tao was shaken. The scalps of all the living beings in the surroundings went numb, and their hearts palpitated. One finger. Crushing an emperor with a single finger. How terrifying was that? Monster! Monster! By Hongyu, Wang Quan, 9 Flames, and the others were incomparably terrified. They had initially thought that they no longer had to fear Chu Kuangren after they became emperors. Little did they expect that Chu Kuangren would still be a nightmare that they could not get rid of even after they became emperors. Moreover, this nightmare was even more terrifying than before. A sense of death loomed over the heads of these new emperors, causing their bodies to tremble uncontrollably. However, their survival instinct still drove them to attack. Heavenly Worshipper slash. Bai Hongyu channeled her emperor's qi and unleashed a slash. The gigantic saber shadow tore the void apart and slashed towards Chu Kuangren. Heavenly torrent of water and fire. 5 elements capturing technique. 3 different Taoist rhymes erupted, and the 3 types of Taoist patterns intertwined in the void before they swept towards Chu Kuangren. Wherever they went, the void shattered and cracks began to spread. Heavenly vortex. Chu Kuangren raised his hand, and the majestic emperor's qi within his body gushed out, forming a vortex at the center of his palm. It sucked in all of the powerful emperor's Taoist energies before he rebounded them back. The three of them were hit by their own energy and were sent flying with blood spewing from their mouths. The Taoist patterns on their emperor's bodies were faintly discernible, as if they were about to shatter. They had been severely injured by their own attacks. How could this be? Even if he's become an emperor, we're all emperors. Why is there such a huge gap between us? This can't be. This can't be. Bai Hongyu and the others could not believe it. They were all new emperors, so how could there be such a huge gap between them? Why? Chu Kuangren, why are you so strong? Why can't we catch up to you even though we've worked so hard for so long? Why? Wang Quan lost his composure. He roared as if he had gone mad. Chu Kuangren looked at him with a calm gaze. All of you work hard to catch up and improve. Do you think I'll just stay where I am? In this world, those who have been defeated by me will never stand a chance against me. All of you can do is chase after my back until you can no longer see me. Then, he raised his hand and unleashed a surge of Emperor's qi, but it was as turbulent as a raging tsunami. Amidst the explosion, Wang Quan, Bai Hongyu, and Zhuyan's Emperor's bodies exploded on the spot, and a huge amount of blood splattered everywhere. The Emperor's blood splattered onto the ground. In an instant, the creatures that were nourished by the Emperor's blood were elated, and countless supreme elixirs grew at an insane rate. 3 emperors were killed with a single move. Fresh blood splattered onto Zi Wuji's body, but he did not dodge it. Instead, he stood there in a daze, unable to recover from the shock. Chu Kuangren slowly walked up and reached out his hand. Zi Wuji was so shocked that his body trembled and his face turned pale. However, Chu Kuangren did not kill him. Instead, he gently patted him on the shoulder. You're wise not to attack just now. You're quite talented, and you still have a lot of potential in the Emperor realm. Chu Kuangren spoke as if he was a senior teaching a junior, but Zi Wuji did not dare to refute him. He stood where he was, but as an emperor, he dared not move at all. Outside Emperor Mountain, the countless cultivators who witnessed the scene felt that it was too ridiculous. They wondered if they were dreaming. The day of his death is the day he becomes an emperor? My God, this is definitely the most pitiful emperor in history. This Chu Kuangren is too terrifying. Too terrifying. He's a complete monster. Becoming an emperor was the dream of many people. Since ancient times, cultivators who became emperors were able to dominate an entire era. Yet now he was killed right after becoming an emperor. Something like this had never happened before. After Chu Kuangren gave Zi Wuji a few words of encouragement, he slowly walked towards Qin Tianqin with the emperor's aura circulating around his body. Am I going to die? Qin Tianqin gulped and struggled to get up. He wanted to escape, but he was locked in place by Chu Kuangren's aura. What's your current cultivation realm? Qin Tianqin asked with a trembling voice. I've only become an emperor a few days ago. Chu Kuangren said calmly. Alright, go to hell. Stop. At that moment a loud roar came from the void. Chu Kuangren paused for a moment, and Qin Tianqin seized the opportunity to turn into a stream of light and dashed away. Idiot. Chu Kuangren's emperor's thought moved and locked onto Qin Tianqin. His invisible mind power instantly controlled Qin Tianqin's body and froze him in midair. Then, with a turn of his mind power, an emperor-grade thunder talisman appeared. A bolt of lightning exploded and landed on Qin Tianqin's body. Since he was already injured, he could not withstand such a terrifying force. His emperor's body cracked under the lightning, and he died on the spot. Chapter 651. A powerful emperor's might exploded in the void. A gray-robed man walked out and stared coldly at Chu Kuangren. Didn't I tell you to stop? Oh, do I have to stop just because you tell me to? Chu Kuangren glanced at him and activated his eye of revelation. This person was also an emperor. Moreover, he was a veteran emperor. What caught Chu Kuangren's attention was that he was an emperor from the ancient orthodoxy, the Qin family. No wonder the other party was so agitated. After all, he just killed a new emperor from that sect right in front of them, so it would be strange if they weren't angry. Good. Are all the new emperors so arrogant now? You're not respecting your seniors at all. Brat, I became a martial emperor hundreds of thousands of years earlier than you. The Qin family's martial emperor said coldly. Are you trying to take advantage of your seniority? Looks like I'll have to teach you a lesson. The great emperor of the Qin clan instantly made his move. He lifted his hand and struck out. Waves of monarch qi burst forth. The incomparably mystical Dao patterns were even more mystical than Qin Tianqin's. It was obvious that his opponent's cultivation level was higher than Qin Tianqin's. In truth, Emperor Realm was divided into 3 realms. Emperor Beginning, Sky Lord, and Dao Lord. The initial Emperor Realm was divided into 9 stages. The lower 3 stages were initial stage, the middle 3 stages were greater stage, and the upper 3 stages were perfection stage. Chu Kuangren, Qin Tianqin, and the other new emperors had just stepped into the Emperor Realm. They were all at the first level of the Emperor Realm, which was the Lesser Emperor Realm. In fact, he was one of the weakest among small perfection emperors. The great emperor of the Qin clan was also a minor emperor, but he was in the 3rd stage of the Emperor Realm. He was an expert among minor Emperor Realm experts. Dealing with the new emperor just like that? How disrespectful. Chu Kuangren remained calm in the face of a 3rd stage Emperor Realm emperor's attack. The emperor's qi within his body surged as he activated his technique of invincibility. Chu Kuangren unleashed a punch, and the 2 surges of emperor's aura collided. Amidst the collision of Taoist patterns, Chu Kuangren did not budge an inch. On the other hand, the Qin family's emperor's expression changed slightly, and he was forced to take a few steps back. How could this be? The expression of the great emperor of the Qin clan changed instantly. He, a 3rd-layer Emperor Realm cultivator, was at a disadvantage in a clash with a new emperor. Was he really someone who had just become an emperor? Just what level is your Emperor Yuan at? The great emperor of the Qin family could sense that the quality of the other party's emperor qi was too high. He had never seen such a quality emperor qi before. Clearly, the quality of the opponent's emperor origin energy was very high, far surpassing him. Top rank, top quality. Otherwise, how could he have such powerful combat strength? There's no need for you to know, Chu Kuangren replied. Ultimate Emperor Essence was his trump card. So why would he reveal it so easily? Although he was confident, he also knew the importance of concealing his strength, especially against emperors. Only by revealing 70% and holding back 30% could one remain invincible. Humph, I don't believe that a new emperor like you can be that strong. The great emperor of the Qin family was about to continue attacking. At this moment, a voice interrupted him. Stop! In the void, a figure descended. It was a woman with exquisite makeup, wearing a bright red dress. Taoist Qinyu, we're not here to start a feud with the new emperor, the woman said indifferently. Humph, Taoist Lung Xian, this person has killed several new emperors. Are you really going to sit back and do nothing? This is their personal grudge. It has nothing to do with us. He killed an emperor of the Qin family. How can it have nothing to do with me? Qinyu snorted, still unwilling to let go. Then continue fighting. Either you kill him, and I'll see how you're going to explain this to the Star Condensation Emperor when we get back. Or else, he kills you and you'll regret it in the afterlife. Lung Xian pouted. Upon hearing that, Qinyu's expression turned sour. First of all, they had come with a mission. If they did not complete it well, they would be punished when they returned. Secondly, if Lung Xian did not help him, it would be difficult for him to take down Chu Kuangren alone. Humph, will do as you say. Qinyu snorted and gradually retracted his domineering aura. Only then did Lung Xian's expression ease up a little. She glanced at the corpses of the emperors around her and revealed a look of pity. They're all new emperors. It's better to die in the Outerium battlefield than here. Beside her, Chu Kuangren's heart skipped a beat. Extraterritorial battlefield? It was another term that he had never heard of before. Are you Emperor Lung Xian? At this moment, Lung Ningyu walked up and asked Martial Monarch Lung Xian. It's me. Emperor Lung Xian nodded slightly. Junior Lung Ningyu from the 7 Emotions sect greets Grandmaster. Lung Ningyu bowed. She had seen Lung Xian's portrait before. She was the great emperor of the 7 Emotions sect, and could be considered as her grandmaster. You've already become a martial emperor. From now on, you can just treat me as someone of the same generation. Lung Exine glanced at Lung Ningyu in relief. Then she said to Chu Kuangren and the others, "The main reason I'm here at the Emperor Mountain is to inform the new emperors of something. In a month's time, all of you are invited to the Firmament Star Snow Dragon Mountain for a meeting. At that time we will answer all of your questions and also explain some matters regarding the emperors." Murongxian and Lan Yu looked at Chu Kuangren after hearing that. Obviously, they were listening to Chu Kuangren. Even Zi Wuji was waiting for the other party's reply. "Alright, we'll keep the appointment in a month." Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. "Since I've delivered the message, I shall take my leave first." Ling Exine had no intention to stay at the Emperor Mountain any longer. She smiled at Lung Ningyu and said, "If there's a chance in the future, I'll return to the Seven Emotions sect. See you at the Snow Dragon Mountain then." After that, Lung Exine and Qinyu, the two great emperors, left. The remaining people looked at each other. Murongxian, Lan Yu, and Lung Ningyu looked at Chu Kuangren, waiting for him to explain. "This is not the place to talk. Let's leave first." Chu Kuangren smiled. After that, the few of them left the Emperor Mountain. The remaining cultivators around the Emperor Mountain had yet to recover from the series of changes. The day the new emperor was born, the Emperor Mountain was bathed in blood. Even the veteran emperors were defeated by Chu Kuangren with a single move. I have a feeling that a great change is about to happen in this realm. Yeah, with the birth of a new emperor, I feel that the spiritual qi in the realm has become more abundant, and it's easier to gain insights into the Tao. It's like we're going back to ancient times, when the great Tao was flourishing. Looks like our cultivation will be easier in the future. The cultivators discussed among themselves. As for the Bai clan, the Wang clan, and the other orthodoxies, they could not help but feel dejected when Chu Kuangren killed their new emperor. After waiting for so long, they finally saw their sky prides become emperors. However, they were killed by Chu Kuangren. What the hell is this? They could not help but feel despair. However, soon, as if the orthodoxies had received some kind of message, they all left the Emperor Mountain and returned to their own orthodoxies. The smarter cultivators could guess what was going on when they saw that. With the changes in the realm and the emergence of the Great Tao, the emperors are getting impatient. Are they preparing for a new round of arrangements? Perhaps the birth of a new emperor is just the beginning of a new era. I have a feeling that a more glorious era is coming. Some of the cultivators rubbed their palms together eagerly. Chapter 652. Inside the Seven Emotions sect. Chu Kuangren, Lan Yu, and the others gathered. Chu Kuangren briefly explained what he had encountered in the burying emperor's coffin, but he left out some details. He only said that he had encountered an opportunity of fortune inside, absorbed the chaotic qi, and became an emperor. The Cold Moon Fairy couldn't help but sigh. Confirming the Tao in a coffin, fellow Taoist Chu. "Oh no, great Emperor Chu, your experience is truly bizarre." By then, Chu Kuangren had already become an emperor. As for emperors, they could not be neglected or disrespected. Although Chu Kuangren might not mind, the Cold Moon deity still felt that it was better to be more careful. "It's all right." Chu Kuangren chuckled. Then he looked at Murongxian, Nangong Huang, and the others and smiled. "How have you guys been?" "Aha, of course. Now that Lan Yu, Murongxian, and the sect leader have all become emperors, once they return to the Black Heaven sect, they'll definitely dominate the entire firmament star." Nangong Huang laughed. Indeed, it had been more than 100,000 years since an emperor had appeared in the firmament star. Now that the Black Heaven sect had 3 emperors, they had officially become an emperor-level orthodoxy, far surpassing the other orthodoxies. Conquering the firmament star would be a piece of cake. "Everything will have to wait until I see the other emperors," Chu Kuangren said. He had a premonition in his heart. The emperors were going to do something. "Master, when will we return to the Black Heaven sect?" Lan Yu asked. Their goal in entering the Emperor's Road was to ascend to the top and become a martial emperor. Now they had achieved their goal. It was about time for him to return to the Black Heaven sect. "Let's rest in the Seven Emotions sect for a day and then leave. Fellow Taoist Ling Yu, can we stay here for a day?" "Of course." The Cold Moon Fairy smiled faintly. He was now a great emperor. She couldn't wait to curry favor with him. That night, Chu Kuangren sat with his legs crossed, absorbing the spiritual qi from the heavens and earth and refining it into Emperor's essence. Not long after, he slowly opened his eyes. The spiritual energy in this world has indeed become denser, and it's still getting stronger. Has the heavenly Tao become stronger? Chu Kuangren opened his palm. A mysterious Tao pattern was faintly discernible in his palm. That was the Heaven Punishment Tao pattern. It could be seen as an upgraded version of Heavenly Punishment Taoist rhyme. This was something that he had grasped after he became a martial emperor. Through this Heaven Punishment Tao pattern, he was more sensitive to the changes in heaven and earth than others. Not only that, but as the heavenly Tao strengthened, Chu Kuangren could feel that the power of the Heavenly Punishment Taoist pattern was also increasing. In other words, Chu Kuangren did not need to cultivate anymore. Due to the strength of the heavenly Tao, his strength was also increasing along with it. This was simply inconceivable. Since ancient times, nothing like this had ever happened. After unlocking the Heavenly Punishment Seal, I seem to possess a portion of the Heavenly Tao's power. Is there any other meaning behind this? Also, what do the God of Light and the God of Darkness mean by the Heaven's Executioner? Is it related to the power of Heaven's punishment? Chu Kuangren shook his head. Unfortunately, he had forgotten to ask the Chaos Tao Master about the heavenly punishment when he was in the Emperor burying coffin. Otherwise, the Chaos Tao Master might have known something. He stopped thinking about it. One day, he would slowly understand these things. Let's head to the Snow Dragon Mountain first and meet up with the emperors. After that, I'll sort out my plans for the future, Chu Kuangren muttered. The next day, Chu Kuangren, Lan Yu, and the others parted ways with the Cold Moon Fairy Lady and the others. However, there were two more people in his group. They were Lung Ningyu and Red Moon. They were going to Firmament Star as well. This was because the Snow Dragon Mountain that the emperors mentioned was in Firmament Star, and it was quite a famous place. It was one of the 10 great forbidden areas of Firmament Star. After understanding that, Lung Ningyu decided to leave with Chu Kuangren. As for Red Moon, she was just there to join in the fun. Besides that, Murong Xian also made a trip to Seven Cord City to fetch Yang Xiun. Before this, Yang Xiun's sect, the Hope Sound sect, had tried to stop the two from falling in love. But now they no longer did. Of course, Murong Xian was already an emperor. Who would dare to stop him? When Murong Xian came to visit, the sect leader of the Xiyin clan was extremely courteous. He shamelessly apologized. He said that he was a great emperor and that he had failed to recognize you in the past. He said that he hoped that he would let bygones be bygones. In the end, he respectfully pushed Yang Xiun out. With that, the two lovers finally got married. TSK, now that the two of you have gotten what you wanted, young lovebirds, I wonder how many people will be envious of you. Chu Kuangren looked at Murong Xian and the slightly shy Yang Xiun and teased them. Beside them, Nangong Huang and the others also offered their blessings. Sect leader, when we return to Black Heaven sect, I hope that you can witness our marriage. Murong Xian looked at Chu Kuangren and said solemnly. Usually, a marriage would be witnessed by the elders of both parties. From Murong Xian's point of view, Chu Kuangren was not only his sect leader, but also the person he respected the most in his life. Of course. Chu Kuangren chuckled. All right, let's go back. Leaving the emperor's path was not difficult for Chu Kuangren, who was already an emperor. All it took was a spatial conveyor skill. On Firmament Star, a ripple appeared in the space. Then more than 10 figures appeared. When the 4 emperors, Chu Kuangren, Lan Yu, Murong Xian, and Lung Ningyu appeared on Firmament Star, the emperor /s aura that emanated from them caused a tremor in the Firmament Star /s space. However, everything returned to normal soon after. The current Firmament Star could now accommodate emperor-level existences. Come, let's return to Black Heaven sect. Chu Kuangren led the group back to the Black Heaven sect. Along the way, they did not conceal their aura at all. Their vast emperor's aura was boundless like a vast ocean that filled the heavens and earth. Wherever they went, countless living beings prostrated themselves. It was as if they had returned home in glory. After cultivating for so many years, now that they had finally become emperors, how could they hide it? Of course, they had to announce it to the world so that everyone would come and congratulate them. On Firmament Star, every sage orthodoxy and forbidden area could feel the emperor's aura that emanated from Chu Kuangren and the others. In an instant the entire firmament star shook. What a terrifying aura. Oh my god, what kind of existence is this? Emperor's aura, it's unprecedented. This is definitely the arrival of an emperor. My god, I knew something big was going to happen when the heavens and earth changed a while ago. So someone has become an emperor. Who is it? That's Chu Kuangren. F***CKME, it's really that guy. Wait a minute, it's not just Chu Kuangren, there's also Lan Yu and Murong Xian. Both of them have become emperors too. All the cultivators on Firmament Star were dumbfounded. Although they were shocked that Chu Kuangren had become an emperor, they were not surprised. After all, Chu Kuangren's past achievements were clear for all to see. However, how did Murong Xian and Lan Yu become emperors too? The Black Heaven sect suddenly had 3 emperors. Are you kidding me? What are the other orthodoxies going to do? Why don't we just give the entire Firmament Star to the Black Heaven sect?